Chapter 585. Zi Jinghong said incredible twice in a row. She had a strange expression on her face. She was silent for a long time before she slowly said, Jun Wu Hui's grave is clean. His sword is placed on the incense burner table. It's spotless. His grave is not even a cenotaph. It's actually a marshal's tent. There are tables and chairs, benches, a marshal's platform, and military orders. Everything is clean. Jun Wu Hui's statue is sitting in the tent. There are military camps all around. Everything is set up according to the most standard military settings. There are 3,000 guards, and there are people on duty every day, patrolling back and forth. Everything is the same as it was when Jun Wu Hui was alive. The security is tight, and everyone needs a password to enter and exit. There are no exceptions. All the soldiers on duty are dressed in neat military uniforms. They are solemn and meticulous. Moreover, they are still wearing the same uniforms from 10 years ago. It's as if they are not guarding a grave, but are still guarding the marshal's tent. These people are really sentimental. Brother Xiao, it's possible if it's just one person, and it wouldn't be surprising if it's 10 or 100. But if the entire Imperial Guard Legion is like this, then only a legendary general can be like a legendary soldier. He took a deep breath. If Jun Wu Hui was still alive, even I would want to make friends with him. Xiao Weiqing was fascinated. He couldn't help but say, Tomorrow, I also want to go up the mountain to pay my respects to this marshal in white. Zi Jinghong chuckled and said, No matter how beautiful a legend is, there will be a day when it comes to an end. Only the divine army Jun Wu Hui's military spirit will not be extinguished. Brother Xiao, it's reasonable for you to pay your respects to him. Such a famous marshal, although he's a junior, is worthy of Brother Zhao's salute. Xiao Weiqing's face was solemn as he nodded his head. Heroes were respected by the universe. It was not about their background or their xianqi. The gloomy weather that had lasted for several days finally cleared up. The sun shone brightly on the thousands of mountains, illuminating the world. For a moment there seemed to be a subtle feeling that the world was filled with white jade sculptures. Moreover, if one accidentally touched the sunlight and didn't circulate his qi to resist it, he would feel a slight stinging pain in his eyes. The weather was freezing. On the road, 2 figures glided on the road with unusual agility. The 2 figures seemed to be completely weightless as they skimmed over the thick layer of snow. They were as fast as a gust of wind and lightning, as if they didn't use any strength at all. Even the legendary lightness skill, traceless snow steps, might not be able to achieve such a situation. Only the even more terrifying myth realm, floating through the air, might be able to compare. However, the 2 of them didn't look like it. The 2 of them weren't even using lightness skill. Both of their feet were tied with a strange object. If they were using lightness skill, they definitely wouldn't be carrying such a cumbersome object. They were holding a thin branch in their hands and poking it to the east and to the west. However, relying on this set of strange objects, the 2 of them became more and more relaxed. Moreover, their speed was getting faster and faster. They were like 2 wisps of faint green smoke, skimming over the boundless snowfield like 2 white meteors streaking across the earth. When they got closer, they could see that the 2 of them were actually a young man and a young woman. The young man was tall and handsome, and the young woman was charming and charming. Her face was like a flower, and her grace was peerless. What a golden boy and jade girl, a pair of celestial beauties. The white clouds in the sky leisurely passed by. The thousands of mountains and valleys on the ground were covered with pure white snow. The 2 of them had black hair and white clothes fluttering in the wind. This picture was actually so beautiful. Ahead was the mountain pass, a fork in the road. There were 2 forks in the road, separated by a mountain in the middle. One of the roads had a huge signboard, Tian Guan Lin, Tears of Heaven. Every word was written with iron and silver hooks, swords drawn and ready to fight. But every word was written to the end, and it gave people a feeling of a hero at the end of his road, a cold and desolate feeling. It was just a few simple words, but when June Moxie saw it from afar, an inexplicable feeling of desolation welled up in his heart, and it was out of control. June Moxie's high-speed moving figure stopped abruptly, and stopped in front of the stone tablet. Suddenly, a strange feeling welled up in him, and he said softly, "So it's here. This is Tian Guan Lin. What's wrong?" While he was in a daze, Mei Shiyan overtook him with a swoosh, then turned around and asked curiously. The current Mei Shiyan was no longer an amateur. She could still control the way of skiing as she wished, or else, she would not have been able to pull off the difficult technique of turning around just now. Facing Mei Shiyan's question, June Moxie acted as if he did not hear it, and did not reply. He only focused on the 7 big words, and his eyes seemed to be in a daze. His heart was filled with all sorts of emotions, and the memories that had long been fused together, at this moment, were extremely clear. Tian Guan Lin. Tears of heaven. Mei Shiyan mumbled, and suddenly a light bulb went off in her head, and she opened her eyes wide in shock. "This place is your father? That Uncle Father?" Mei Shiyan suddenly lost her sense of propriety, and said it awkwardly. If based on age and status, she really could not open her mouth to call June Moxie's father uncle. "It's my father." At this moment, June Moxie did not pay attention to those unimportant things, and this sentence just naturally slipped out of his mouth. His expression was solemn, and he slowly said, "This is the place where he fought his last battle, and also the place of eternal rest." June Moxie looked at the 7 big words, and his heart was in turmoil. It seemed like, no matter if it was the previous Emo Xie or himself, this was the first time they came here. And this fact made June Moxie want to dig out that guy's soul and give it a good beating. In the past, he only knew that this kid was a prodigal, but now it seemed that this kid was even more unfilial. No matter how far the distance was, as a son, he should at least come to pay his respects twice a year, right? This guy actually did not come even once in the past 10 years. "Let's go this way." June Moxie's voice was low, and he looked in the direction of Tian Guan Lin. Mei Shiyan softly replied with a and did not say anything else. She just followed behind June Moxie silently. The two of them did not use their extraordinary body techniques, nor did they use the sleigh to ski. They just stepped on the white snow, and slowly walked forward. Their thoughts seemed to have become extremely distant and faintly discernible at this moment. Although this road was covered in snow, it could still be seen that this place was usually cleaned by a lot of people. Everywhere was clean, even the flowers and plants on the mountain rocks on both sides of the road were neatly trimmed. Although there were only bare branches without any occupation, the traces of trimming could be seen with a single glance. On this road, there might be people from the illusory blood sea intercepting us. June Moxie clasped his hands behind his back, and walked forward leisurely, as if he was talking about something irrelevant. His voice was faintly discernible. "If there is really someone intercepting us, I, June Moxie, hereby swear that in this lifetime, no matter the cost, I will kill every last one of the 3 holy lands. I will destroy their 10,000 years of foundation completely by my hands." June Moxie's tone was indifferent, but Mei Shiyan could hear an unshakable determination in his voice. "I don't think it will be to that extent. The 3 holy lands have always been prejudiced against our Tian Fa forest. Moreover, their actions have been quite perverse and absurd. But I don't think that they would do such inhumane and despicable things," Mei Shiyan said softly. She naturally understood June Moxie's thoughts. Intercepting a father's son in front of his grave. This was a completely heartless thing. Even the most vicious and evil person would have to think twice before doing such a thing. Not only was it heartless, but it was also immoral. This was a huge taboo in the world. I hope so. Then their ancestors would really burn incense. The reverse scale of a dragon, touching it means death. If my reverse scale is touched, all 10 races will not be spared, Jun Moxie said lightly, but his eyes flashed with sharpness. Mei Shuyan looked at his back, not knowing whether to laugh or cry, and followed after him. In this world, who would dare to say that the 3 holy lands did not deal with me because they were sensible? Their ancestors would burn incense, and all 10 races would not be spared? Who do you think you are? This tone was so arrogant that there was no limit to it. It was even worse than killing 9 clans, but Mei Shuyan believed that Jun Moxie would definitely do it. Even if he did not have the ability to do it now, he would definitely be able to do it in the future. She had this confidence. The 2 of them sped up again and rushed forward like 2 white meteors. The road in front of them became wider and wider. After another turn, the 2 of them suddenly stopped at the same time, and stared blankly in front of them. In the distance, in such cold weather, a group of nearly 100 burly men were shoveling snow on the road with all their might. Each of their bodies was steaming hot, and they were sweating profusely. Looking from afar, the rising steam actually looked like fog. None of these burly men had a high level of Xian Qi cultivation. At most, they were at the early stage of Silver Xian. In such cold weather, they were actually in such a state. They must have been shoveling snow for a long time. The people in front shoveled snow, and piled it into a pile. Then, someone pushed a cart over, and shoveled the pile of snow onto the cart, and quickly transported it away. Then, someone immediately took a special big broom and swept the ground, until the original color of the mountain rocks and soil was revealed. Everyone did not speak, and only focused on their work, as if shoveling snow was a sacred task. Behind them, one could clearly see that the road was very clean, and there was not even a single bit of snow. Even the ground had been scraped off. The road meandered into the distance, in such a remote place. Even if there were people hurrying along, there would be very few of them. But these people had to spend so much effort to clear such a wide and clean road. Jun Moxie suddenly felt a little sour in his nose. He had already acutely understood the abnormality of this place. Chapter 586. Jun Moxie and Mei Shuyan approached slowly. The man on the other side had obviously noticed them. With a command, 9 of the men put on their clothes. Although they were old and tattered, they were still neatly dressed. One man walked in front, while the other 8 followed behind him in 2 rows. Their bodies were straight and their steps were neat and tidy. It was actually the standard military reception etiquette. Only these 9 people walked out. The others continued to work as if they did not see them. They did not even bat an eye. When these 9 people came closer, the leader was a bearded man of nearly 40 years of age. There was an eye-catching knife scar on his face. He straightened his body and cupped his fists. He asked, "Young master, young miss, may I ask if the 2 of you are here to pay respects to Marshal Jun?" "Yes," Jun Moxie said amiably. "Uncle, please lead the way." Jun Moxie understood. These people were probably his father's old subordinate. In order to guard Jun Wu Hui's grave, they had been stationed here for more than 10 years. Just this persistence alone made Jun Moxie feel that the other party deserved to be called uncle. If he couldn't be such a good man, then no one else would be able to be such a good man. Although he had memories from his previous life, and was also a person who looked down on the world, although his achievements in this life were also great, but facing this most sincere friendship, Jun Moxie felt that he really respected them from the bottom of his heart. Jun Moxie's words of uncle aroused the suspicions of the man opposite him. These men who had been through hundreds of battles had experienced many vicissitudes of life. They had their own wisdom. The man turned his head suspiciously and exchanged a few glances with his companions. When he turned back, his expression was obviously much more relaxed. However, he still asked meticulously, "Young master, you are exaggerating. Wang Meng is only a rough man. I do not deserve to be called uncle. May I ask, which family are you from?" "I am Jun Moxie." Jun Moxie took a deep breath. At this moment, saying his own name, June Moxie felt an inexplicable sourness in his heart. It was as if at this moment, his entire soul had completely melted into this original body. June Moxie, the son of June Wu Hui. You said you are June Moxie? Is it really you? The man named Wang Meng's expression changed greatly. He blurted out and took 2 steps back. The way he looked at June Moxie changed instantly. Became unusually complicated. There was respect due to love for the house, anger due to June Moxie not living up to expectations. There was also happiness, and there was even an inexplicable sense of encouragement. Wang Meng, this tough man's lips actually trembled a little. So young master has arrived. But third young master, did you bring your family's keepsake? June Moxie's expression changed. He reached out to untie a jade pendant from his waist and handed it over with both hands. It was a green jade pendant, lush and green. There was a small symbol of a blood orchid on it. Below the blood orchid, there was a golden seal character, June. On the back of the jade pendant, there were 8 small words, a dignified person, forever MOCIE. This was the unique symbol of the June family. And this jade pendant was the symbol of June Moxie's identity. Holding the June family's bloodline jade pendant, the curly-bearded man, Wang Meng, suddenly trembled. Tears quickly flowed out of his tiger eyes. It has been a long time, June. We have been away from this character for 10 years. It has been a whole 10 years since we last met. Although June Zhantian's body was strong and healthy, he was still old. In these years, he had only come here twice. June Wui's legs were disabled. He could not walk properly. Moreover, he felt guilty and could not face his late brother. In these years, it was basically the housekeeper, Old Pang, who came here a few times a year. The June family's jade pendant. The jade pendant of a direct descendant. The person in front of him was the only son of the Supreme Commander, the only bloodline. Suddenly, Wang Meng fell to his knees with tears streaming down his face. In a hoarse and trembling voice, he said, Wang Meng pays his respects to third young master. The heavens have taken pity on me. Third young master has finally grown up and has become sensible. If the Supreme Commander knows of this, he will definitely smile in the underworld. It was as if June Moxie's visit to pay his respects to his biological father was a very rare event. Uncle Wang Meng, please don't do this. How can MOCIE bear the responsibility? June Moxie was shocked to see this. He hurriedly helped him up. His heart was filled with mixed feelings. The rims of his eyes were somewhat red. All these years, June Moxie's reputation as a debauchee had shaken the world. His skills had shocked the 4 corners of the world. At best, this was something that happened recently. Some people in remote places still thought that this third young Master June was a good-for-nothing who only knew how to eat and wait to die. Just by coming to pay his respects, he was able to make these old subordinates of his father so excited and happy. Especially the last few words, and has become sensible, made June Moxie's heart feel a little sour. Such a simple feeling. It was a matter of course for a son to pay respects to his father. Now that he had come, it was just a small act of filial piety. Yet it was able to make this outsider so excited that he even praised him for being sensible. Their expectations of him were so low. From this, it could be seen how much of a bastard June Moxie was. Standing up with tears streaming down his face, Wang Meng turned around and shouted, "Everyone come over! Great news! The third young Master June has come to pay a visit to the Supreme Commander. It's the Supreme Commander's third young master. Everyone come over quickly. Quickly come and welcome the third young master." Boom! The crowd instantly became excited. Everyone even threw down their shovels and ran over with their backs bare. Everyone's face was full of excitement. Among them, a skinny man who was slightly older cried as he ran. He cried out, "The third young master has finally come. I'm sure that the Supreme Commander has been looking forward to this day and night. Today, the heavens have taken pity on him. Finally, His own flesh and blood have come to pay respects. If the Supreme Commander knows about this in the underworld, one of his wishes will be fulfilled. Even someone as calm and steady as June Moxie could not help but have his eyes turn red today. This kind of happiness that came from the bottom of his heart made June Moxie feel even more sad and ashamed. This large group of men surrounded June Moxie and Mei Shuyan tightly. Everyone's face was filled with the most sincere and heartfelt joy. After the initial excitement, they immediately started talking. The third young Master June is indeed the Supreme Commander's son. Look at his eyes, they are as calm and wise as the Supreme Commander. No, I think it's his mouth that is the most similar. It's just slightly pursed, and there's a sense of determination and cruelty. Every time the Supreme Commander gives an order, his lips are pursed like this. Once when I received the order, I secretly looked up and was shocked. What's with your eyes? Look at the third young master's eyebrows. When the Supreme Commander was fighting Zhao Jianhun, when he gave the order to attack, the Supreme Commander's eyebrows were raised like this. At that time, I felt that we would definitely win. What do you think? I said that we would definitely win and defeat the enemy. The third young master's eyebrows are the most similar to the Supreme Commander. As the crowd talked, their voices gradually became softer. They just stared at June Moxie's face and muttered, so similar to the Supreme Commander. Slowly, their eyes became hazy with tears. Suddenly, a Chinese character sobbed bitterly. He cried until his liver and intestines were cut into pieces. He said intermittently, I, Li Debao, seem to see Marshall again. This face. I see it in my dreams every day. Today, I finally see the real person again. Third young master, why didn't you come earlier? Marshall, we have been waiting for you for so long. As he cried, all the men tightly shut their lips. The muscles on their faces twitched as they tried their best to stop their tears from flowing down. However, they were unable to do so. Their tightly shut lips slowly opened, and tears began to fall from their eyes. This face that they had been dreaming of for 10 years, unfortunately, this person was not the Supreme Commander. He was the Supreme Commander's son. The Supreme Commander, we will never see him again. Tears fell like rain. Such an iron-blooded man, heartbroken and sorrowful. Who said that a man doesn't cry easily? It's only when he's sad. Now that it's time for him to be sad, he cried and showed his true colors. That's his true feelings. This kind of indescribable sadness even infected Mei Shuyan. She couldn't help but turn her face away, feeling sad. This was the first time June Moxie had seen tears in his life. He comforted the crowd for a long time before they finally stopped crying. They wiped their faces in embarrassment, feeling a little embarrassed, as if he was deliberately changing the topic. Wang Meng wiped his face and forced a smile. He said, Third young master, this lady is? As he spoke, the crowd finally noticed that there was an outstanding beauty in front of them. Moreover, she came together with the third young master. They couldn't help but become excited. Could it be, uncles, this lady is my wife? Her surname is Mei. I brought her here today for my father to see. Does he like her? All of you are my father's brothers and sisters. Can this nephew's daughter-in-law enter your eyes? June Mo smiled as he introduced her to the others. Really? Wang Meng jumped 3 feet high and laughed. Such a virtuous and beautiful daughter-in-law. If the marshal knew about it, he would be so happy. What's there to be dissatisfied with? The crowd was so excited that their faces were red. They looked at Mei Shuyan as if they were looking at a treasure. They nodded in satisfaction and grinned from ear to ear. This scene was even happier than when their own sons found a wife. Venerable Mei, who had always been graceful and elegant, felt extremely bashful under the gazes of these men. She lowered her head and felt as if her heart was thumping wildly. Quick, quick, quick. Brothers, get out of the way. I'll quickly bring the third young master and young madam to greet the marshal. The marshal must be anxious from waiting. It's been 10 years. He hasn't seen his son for a whole 10 years. Today, His son and daughter-in-law have come together. This is a joyous occasion. Wang Meng was so excited that his face was red. He raised his arms and shouted. Although Jun Wu Hui had been dead for 10 years, when these guards mentioned Jun Wu Hui, they still used the word greet, and not pay their respects. Chapter 587. That's right, lest Marshal gets anxious. Brother Wang Meng, you have to take good care of third young master and young madam. Hurry up, if Marshal gets angry, all of us will beat you up. Only then did they disperse into 2 neat rows. They watched as Jun Moxie and Mei Shiyan walked past them. In their eyes, it was as if they were looking at their own sons and nephews. Jun Moxie greeted them along the way. When he was far away, he turned around and saw that the hundreds of burly men were still looking at his back. They did not move at all, as if they were looking at their most respected and worshipped. The marshal in white. Jun Moxie's heart ached again. He took a deep breath, trying to control his emotions. But his nose felt sour, and he almost couldn't hold back his tears. Wang Meng followed beside him, his face full of joy, as if he had done something great. Along the way, he introduced every blade of grass and every tree to Jun Moxie. The knife scar on his face seemed to be trembling with joy. Third young master, look here. When Marshal led his troops to Tian Guanling, he dismounted from his horse for the first time. There are still a few rocks here. At that time, the marshal was standing on the biggest rock, looking back to see the troops of our brothers marching over majestically. At that time, I was only a small captain of the marshal's guards and happened to be by the marshal's side, so I saw it clearly. I still remember the marshal's words at that time. He said, "This is a good place to set up camp." When Wang Meng said the last sentence, his voice suddenly became calm, as if he was imitating Jun Wu Hui's tone. The expression on his face suddenly became serious. Jun Mo Xie looked in the direction he was pointing at and saw a large stone. It was squarish, with many edges and corners that had become somewhat smooth. These guards must have polished it every day for the past 10 years. To think that this ordinary stone had unknowingly completed the process of polishing and polishing it, when Marshal came here that year, he seemed to have a lot on his mind. On that stone wall over there, Marshal stood there for a long time. His face was dark, and he did not say a word. After a long time, he composed a poem. After that, my brothers carved it on the stone wall. Wang Meng's eyes reddened as he said, "I, Wang Meng, am a crude man. Although I don't understand the meaning of the poem, I still recite it every day when I pass by this place." Jun Moxie slowly walked up to the front of the stone wall. He saw that there were 4 lines of words carved on it, and the handwriting was exactly the same as the 7 words at the foot of the mountain. The great flag of beacon smoke is unfurled. Thousands of horses and thousands of soldiers surged over. Since when did the battlefield become familiar with swords and soldiers? From now on, men will not restrain their grief. So it turns out that father, he had long been tired of killing. Jun Moxie looked on quietly, and could not help but think of the story of Jun Wu Hui that his third uncle, Jun Wui, had told him. When will the battlefield be filled with swords and soldiers? From now on, men will not restrain their grief. These 2 lines expressed Jun Wu Hui, the god of war of this generation, the general in white, and his deep hatred for war, as well as his blessings for his brothers. The terrain became steeper and steeper as they walked, and gradually, they were on the path to the mountain. After walking for another half a mile, the path on the mountainside became even narrower, and could only allow 4 or 5 people to walk side by side. On one side, there was a cliff that looked like it had been cut by a knife, piercing the blue sky. On the other side, there was a cliff that was not very high, and the snow at the bottom of the cliff was as smooth as a mirror. It actually looked like a plain. There is a big lake below here, but it is currently covered by snow, so we can't see it now. If it is summer, the water will be sparkling, and it will be very beautiful. Wang Meng introduced with some pride. back then, after we were stationed here for 3 days, the marshal came here one day, and looked at the lake in a daze for a long time. He used his sword to carve a few lines of poetry on the stone wall over there. June Moxie had already noticed that on the cliff in front of him there was a relatively smooth area. There were a few lines of words carved on it with the tip of a sword. The words were round and full, and naturally had a majestic feel to it. I hate that this body does not belong to me. Who is the master of the fields in my dreams? Why should I disarm my armor in the mountains and rivers, and leisurely float on a small boat on the 5 lakes? After reading these 4 lines of poetry, it was as if he could see a general dressed in the robes of 100 battles, looking at the leisurely lake in front of him in a daze. He was obviously already planning on what to do after his retirement. In fact, he was even looking forward to the peaceful and happy life after his retirement. June Moxie took a deep breath of cold air. Suddenly, a wave of anger welled up in his heart. It turns out that father had long been tired of the life on the battlefield, and had already planned to retire. He would not be a threat to the imperial power, but the Tianxiang Empire was still afraid that he would be too powerful, and would not hesitate to let the wolf into the house, and destroy his own pillars, using despicable means to harm him. June Moxie suddenly felt an inexplicable anger. In front of us is the marshal's tent. Wang Meng led June Moxie all the way and actually passed through 7 or 8 sentry checks. When the sentry veterans heard that the marshal's son was here to pay his respects, they were all extremely excited. Finally, they reached the hillside. This was the real Tianguanling. What appeared in front of June Moxie's eyes was a majestic and huge military camp. The wind on the ridge was urgent. June Wu Hui's marshal's flag stood tall, fluttering in the wind. The bright red flag was like a flaming cloud, dancing in the air. Faintly, there was an aura of fighting against the universe, and dominating the world. Surrounding the commander's tent were 8 military camps. They formed a triangular formation, guarding each other like stars surrounding the moon. The central commander's tent was tightly protected. Squads of soldiers in bright armor patrolled back and forth with their bodies straight and determined. Their expressions were serious and solemn, and they were meticulous. Just as one group passed by, another group immediately patrolled over. The 8 patrolling groups went back and forth, and there was not the slightest gap between them. At this time, a person strode out of the marshal's tent. He was dressed in a general's uniform, with thick eyebrows and round eyes. He was more than 7 feet tall, and his body was unusually strong. Wherever he stood, he looked like an iron tower. The general stared at him and shouted, "Wang Meng, I let you lead the troops to clear the snow on the road, and you actually slacked off and returned? What punishment do you deserve?" Wang Meng was shocked. He stood up straight and saluted, and said loudly, "General Wu, it's the marshal's 3rd son and young madam who came to pay their respects to the marshal. I am just doing my duty as a leader, and did not intentionally neglect military duties." The marshal's 3rd son? June Moxie? General Wu's expression changed. His eyes turned to look at June Moxie, and his gaze became sharper. When June Moxie was at home, he already knew that Wu Yongjun, the #1 general of his father's guards, was a brave and courageous general. Now that he saw Wu Yongjun's imposing manner, he praised him in his heart. Just as he was about to step forward and salute, Wu Yongjun suddenly glared at him and said angrily, "You are June Moxie? You bastard, why are you only here now? What have you been doing for the past few years, you bastard?" The first thing he did was to reprimand him, followed by a string of curses. He actually changed the way he addressed him 3 times. Then, the eyes of Wu Yongjun, a general who had been through hundreds of battles, suddenly reddened. He tried his best to open his eyes and control his emotions, fearing that a drop of tear would fall. However, his voice still became hoarse as he scolded, "You bastard! As the only flesh and blood of the Grand Marshal, You actually didn't come to pay your respects for 10 whole years. June Moxie, you bastard, do you know, the Marshal is alone here, and how lonely he is? How much he misses all of you. You disappointing. At the end of his words, he couldn't help but sob. June Moxie didn't say a word. He was speechless when faced with the scolding of the person in front of him. Wu Yongjun's voice was very loud, and when he shouted, many people came out from the surrounding tents. When they heard that the Marshal's son had come, they immediately swarmed over, and the scene became a little chaotic. You little bastard, why aren't you going to see your father? Why are you still dawdling here, you bastard? Wu Yongjun roared like a bolt from the blue. However, after shouting, he couldn't help but rub his eyes. When he removed his hands, his eyes were already red. His throat seemed to be blocked by something, and he grunted a few times like a bellows. His mouth opened a few times, and it looked like he was about to cry. Suddenly, he separated the crowd, covered his face, and ran into a big tent. Then, an extremely suppressed sound came from inside, as if a wild bull was forcefully covered in a quilt and let out a dull and painful whimper. Marshal, that son of yours finally came to see you. I scolded that brat, but he still came to see you. He looks exactly like you, so handsome, and he even brought a beautiful wife with him. You'll definitely like her. Under the urging of the crowd, June Moxie and Mei Shiyan stepped into the Marshal's tent step by step. Everyone stood neatly outside the Marshal's tent. Their faces were filled with joy and sorrow, and their gratified smiles were filled with tears. They silently watched the silent Marshal's tent, leaving the space inside for June Moxie and Mei Shiyan. Then, they faced the Marshal's tent and knelt down neatly. Everyone said in a low voice, "Congratulations, Marshal. You have a successor. God bless the June family, you will not be alone." Their faces were filled with sincerity, as if they were saying these 16 words of blessing with all their heart, soul, and spirit. The moment June Moxie entered, he immediately felt a wave of shock that came from the bottom of his heart. Inside the Marshal's tent, it was completely a well-organized wartime command center. There were 8 chairs on both sides, and behind the chairs, there were bright unsheathed swords and sabers. Right in front there was a desk. On top of the desk there was an ivory bucket. Inside there were 10 military orders arranged neatly. On the desk there was a record book, and on the other side there was a long sword that shone with a cold light. Chapter 588. Everything was exactly the same as the real person. But upon closer inspection, the person in the middle was actually a statue carved out of white jade, vivid and lifelike. Even the tiniest creases on the robes were carved with great detail. Even the lines on the skin on the hands and face were vivid and lifelike. One could see how much effort the person who carved this statue had put in. At first glance, it was as if this statue had a soul. Behind him, on the left, there were 8 large words, "The Unregretful Hero." On the right, there were also 8 large words, "The Only Monarch Reigns Under the Heavens." Above it was a white jade board with 4 large words carved on it, "Rise and Fall of the Order. General in White Jun Wu Hui." How impressive! Mei Shiyan unconsciously looked at Jun Wu Hui's statue with a look of admiration and said in a low voice, "Monsieur, you look exactly the same as your father." "My father? He's also your father." June Moxie looked at it for a long time, lost in thought. Then he said in a low voice, "Shuiyan, come here and kowtow to your father. You will be the daughter-in-law of the June family for the rest of your life. There is no way you can run away. Father will be very happy to see your son and daughter-in-law at the same time." Mei Shiyan's face turned red and she nodded shyly. Then she knelt down respectfully next to June Moxie. June Moxie respectfully lit 3 joss sticks and said in a low voice, "Father, it has been 10 years since we last met. Your son and daughter-in-law have only come to visit you today. I hope that you will know of this in the afterlife and be able to relax your frown. Your great enmity, I will definitely wash it with snow." Whether it is the Blizzard Silver City or the Tianxiang Empire, anyone who has harmed you must pay the heaviest price. This is your son, Jun Moxie's oath. Father shall bear witness. Heaven and earth shall bear witness. The oath was sonorous and resonant. At this moment, Jun Moxie's heart was unusually heavy, and he slowly kowtowed. Be it in his previous life or this life, although he had always been arrogant and unruly towards this general in white, Jun Moxie, he respected him from the bottom of his heart. Just from the countless legends, he already had a deep understanding of him. In addition to the fusion of their souls, at this moment, Jun Moxie could clearly feel that Jun Wu Hui was his father. Ever since he came to this world, he had never bent his knees. But at this moment, he was willing. Such a hero, even if he wasn't her father, he was worthy of her sincere worship. What's more, there was always a kinship that was hard to cut off. Although his soul came from another world, this body was indeed Jun Wu Hui's flesh and blood. There was a cycle of reincarnation. At most, he had just coincidentally reincarnated with his memories. If he didn't have his memories, would his heart still resist? That was an unbelievable thing. Just as Jun Moxie and Mei Xuyan knelt down, there was a sudden gust of wind in Tianguanlin. Countless clouds gathered in the sky, and the snow on the ground was swept up into the air, covering the sky. From the sky to the ground, it was all hazy. All the flags unfurled at the same time. What was even more strange was that the originally raging north wind had strangely turned into a south wind at this moment. The direction in which the flags unfurled was actually towards the north. That was the direction of the Tianxiang capital. General! Everyone outside suddenly knelt down in unison. Their eyes were filled with tears, and they shouted crazily towards the sky, as though they were going to tear their throats. General's spirit, return! General's spirit, return! They kowtowed on the ground, and tears flowed out like a fountain. The wind whistled in the sky, whimpering and whimpering, as though it was responding to everyone. After a long time, Jun Moxie and Mei Xuyan walked out slowly. Opposite them, everyone's gaze was focused on them, especially on their knees and their foreheads. Then, everyone smiled happily. On Jun Moxie's knees, there was an eye-catching stain, and on his forehead, there was a light ash. So was Mei Xuyan. This was the scheming part of these soldiers. They were afraid that someone would use the excuse of not kowtowing to insult their general, so they sprinkled some light ash on the ground. Then, this group of bold yet respectable and cute men surrounded them warmly. Emocia. You're here, Emocia. Haha, you've grown up, and you've found yourself a wife. We don't have much to offer, so we'll give you a present each. Please don't mind, Emocia. You have to come more often. General is looking forward to seeing you. Didn't you see that General was so happy just now? He was so happy. This man couldn't help but sob at the end of his speech. Why are you crying? Third young master brought his wife to visit General. It's a joyous occasion. You King only know how to cry like a girl. Are you a man or not? Although this man was reprimanding others, his own eyes were already red. Sob, sob, sob. I'm happy. Sob. I'm really happy. General finally has a successor, and I've seen my wife today. I think I'll be able to hold my grandson soon. Sob, sob. I'm happy for General. Happy. A man started bawling, sitting on the ground, and banging his head on the ground. He sobbed, I miss the days when I followed General. Seeing that third young master looks exactly like General, I'm happy and sad. Just a simple sentence, and it caused everyone to fall silent. Tears and snot flowed down their faces. Their eyes reminisced about the past, with a sense of vicissitudes of life, as though they had returned to the days when they followed Jun Wu Hui and fought on the battlefield. Jun Moxie stayed in Tianguanling for a day and a night, and only left on the third day in the wee hours of the morning. The enthusiasm of this group of guards simply made even a cold-hearted person like June Mosie feel warm and fuzzy inside. June Mosie could clearly feel that these people were treating him well from the bottom of their hearts. They treated him as if he was their most beloved nephew, practically wishing that they could dig out their hearts and give them to him. This was definitely not something that could be faked. How could it be faked when they were truly giving their hearts out? The two of them slowly walked down the mountain. Behind them, countless people followed and watched them leave. On everyone's face, there were traces of tears, but there were also gratified smiles. Until they were far away, there were still shouts coming from behind. Third young master. Come back more when you're free. This is also your home. We'll wait for you to come back. Bring your son. General will miss you too. Mei Shuyan wiped her reddened eyes, and with a nasal voice, she said, "Who said that only us mystical beasts are pure and sincere? These people are the same. They're so cute, so sincere. Your father is amazing. He actually has so many good brothers who are loyal to him through life and death." June Moxie took a deep breath and sighed. "Yes, it's not easy to achieve this. I don't think I can do it." In his heart, he thought of his conversation with Wu Yongjun and the rest last night. Originally, Tianguanling was a place that all soldiers fought for. But ever since General set up camp here, no matter which country's generals, they would only take a detour. Even if they came occasionally, they would only come to pay their respects. No one dared to offend us. We will never leave this place again. We will always protect General. If we leave, General will be lonely. General is used to the days of thousands of soldiers and horses. Once it's quiet, we're afraid he won't be able to take it. When June Moxie brought up the idea of migrating and settling down for their descendants, Wu Yongjun and the rest said, "Not only will we stay with General forever, even my son and grandson will definitely stay here. The Wu Hui Army flag is our greatest pride. With this flag, everyone will feel like they have a backbone. Only then will there be meaning to life. We can be self-sufficient, we farm and enjoy ourselves here. We don't need much money at all. Third young master, you should bring the money with you and do things that are useful to the June family." When June Moxie wanted to leave some money, Wu Yongjun and the rest firmly rejected him. "You must come often. You must cure Madam, third young master. The June family will depend on you in the future. You must not let General down. Father is a hero, son is a good man, you must not tarnish General's reputation." As June Moxie thought about it, he unknowingly walked far away. Mei Shuyan knew that he was not feeling well, so she followed him silently, not saying a word, to give him time to adjust his emotions. After a long time, June Moxie quietly looked back. At this time, he was already very far away from Tianguanling, but with his eyesight, he could still see that there were people standing there for a long time, waving at him. "I will definitely be back. Definitely. I won't let you down for what you've done. I will definitely not let you down. Goodbye." June Moxie secretly swore in his heart. When he turned back, his expression was obviously much more relaxed. He and Mei Shuyan looked at each other. Both of them had the same thought, and understood at the same time. Exerting strength under their feet, they once again turned into two white meteors, instantly flying across the vast land, disappearing at the corner of the mountain pass. Behind them, Tianguanling was still majestic and solemn and dignified. As they moved forward, June Moxie suddenly frowned. At the same time, Mei Shuyan also looked at him. Both of them instantly understood each other's gaze. In front, there was a strong enemy ambush. And there were many of them. Here, just 10 miles away from Tianguanlin, was a basin that was neither too big nor too small, and was surrounded by mountains. Both of them stood still at the same time, and it was still Mei Shuyan who spoke first, coldly saying, "Are you friends from the Three Holy Lands? Since you're here, show yourselves. There's really no point in hiding." "Ha ha ha!" A clear long laugh, a purple ray flashed, and Zi Jinghong leisurely appeared. Beside him was Xiao Weicheng. Sounds of clothes fluttering could be heard all around, and 40 to 50 people appeared at the same time, surrounding the two of them in the middle. When he was in Tianguanling, June Moxie had heard that there were two people in weird robes who went up to pay their respects. From their description, June Moxie immediately thought of Zi Jinghong and Xiao Weiqing. Hence, seeing the two of them now, he was not surprised. In fact, if he did not meet the two of them here, it would be a miracle instead. The other party did not make a move on Tianguanling, which made the anger in June Moxie's heart subside a little. But now that he saw them, it was a different story. Chapter 589. Xiao Weiqing. It's you again. You still haven't given up. Mei Shuiyan's eyes flashed, and her face instantly became covered with a layer of frost. She coldly said, Sect Master Xiao, you've started a war again. You didn't even hesitate to join hands with the illusory ocean of blood. It seems that you're determined to defeat me today. I wonder if you've discussed how to split the spoils after the battle? Xiao Weiqing's face was solemn, and he said lightly, Venerable Mei has made a mistake. Today's meeting, the great golden city was invited, and the person in charge here is not me, but someone else. Zi Jinghong smiled elegantly, took 2 steps forward, and said with a smile, Venerable Mei, perhaps there's some misunderstanding? The 3 holy lands, 1 ferocious lands, and the 4 lands have always been equally famous. Perhaps we don't have comrades, but we do have comrades. Tian Fa's contribution to the war for seizing the heavens is obvious to all. We only have respect for Venerable Mei and nothing else. This time, we're just here to exchange pointers with Venerable Mei, and to improve our skills in preparation for the war for seizing the heavens. There's no need to be so hostile. Zi Jinghong, I've underestimated you previously. When you said this, your face didn't even turn red. I really have to admit that I'm impressed. Mei Shuiyan's elegant face was almost filled with a smile. She had seen people who were thick-skinned, but it was the first time she had seen someone like Zi Jinghong who could lie with his eyes wide open. Moreover, he could say it in such a dignified and proper manner. Venerable Mei's words are a little too much. If I wanted to deal with you, there are many good places to choose. Why did you have to choose such an ordinary place? Zi Jinghong scoffed and said, For example, Tianguanling. Haha, isn't that the best place for an ambush? There were still 3,000 guards and their families up there. If we were to make a move there, Venerable Mei would definitely have scruples. It would be a great opportunity for us to ambush them. But I would rather give up than make a move on Tianguanlin. I feel that I have already done all I can for you, Venerable Mei. June Moxie took a step forward solemnly. Lengling said, Zi Jinghong, I, June Moxie, am rather grateful that you did not choose to do it in Tianguanling. Although it is a taboo to kill the descendants of others in front of their tombs, I still want to thank you. However, Zi Jinghong, there is one thing you have to understand. No matter where you intercept, your opponent is your opponent. This will never change. You did not make a move on Tianguanlin, it only means that you still have a conscience, and you still have some humanity. But it does not mean that you will really show mercy today. He smiled at Lengling and said, Zi Jinghong, you can't hide it from others. Ask yourself honestly, even at this moment, even at this place, will you really show mercy? We have already shed all pretenses of cordiality. Why are you still playing these hypocritical games? Let's fight it out. Zi Jinghong's expression changed, and she stared at June Moxie sternly, and said in a deep voice, June Moxie, although I respect your father, it does not mean that I can tolerate your impudence. You are not qualified to say such things to me. I feel the same way. June Moxie smiled suavely and said, Actually, I really don't want to say such nonsense to you, but you went up the mountain to pay respects to my father, and left 10,000 silvers for my brothers. It shows that although you are despicable, shameless, vicious, and dirty, you still have some conscience. That's why I'm saying this to you. Since you don't know what's good for you, Why should I lower myself to talk nonsense to you? To put it bluntly, in my eyes, not only do the 3 Holy Lands not have the right, but you are also useless. Also, Zi Jinghong, you have to understand something. Jun Moxie stretched out a finger, shook it lightly, and laughed mockingly. In the illusory blood sea, you are only the 3rd Lord, not the sovereign. So next time when you address yourself, you have to say this 3rd Lord, and never this sovereign. This will cause misunderstandings. I am in a good mood today, so I am reminding you, in case you get yourself into trouble because of this one day. I am a good person, am I not? Why aren't you thanking me? Zi Jinghong's face turned red, and her eyes flashed fiercely. The sarcasm in Jun Moxie's words was extremely sharp. Presumptuous. Jun Moxie, who do you think you are? How dare you speak to Sovereign Zi like this? Don't think that you are so great just because you have a backer. Quickly kneel down and kowtow to Sovereign, and admit your mistake. We can spare your little life. Otherwise, I will send you to see your dead father, and let you and your father reunite in the netherworld. The one who spoke was a skinny bald man, and his voice was a little sharp. There were some bruises on his face. It was Go Buhuan, who had reported to Zi Jinghong that day. As he spoke, he stared fiercely at Jun Moxie, and there was a hint of greed in his eyes. He looked at Jun Moxie, and then looked at Mei Shuyan. His slender tongue unconsciously stuck out, and he licked his lips. When he finished, he turned to Zi Jinghong and cupped his fists. 3rd Sovereign, I have a presumptuous request, and I hope that 3rd Sovereign will agree to it. Go Buhuan, what presumptuous request do you have? Let me hear it. Zi Jinghong frowned. She was rather disgusted with this Go Buhuan. Although she and Jun Moxie were enemies, there was no need to bring up a hero, right? That was blasphemy. Especially when she saw his blood-red slender tongue, she immediately felt a little nauseous. 3rd Sovereign, you also know that I have a little hobby. Cough cough, I mean, I am greedy for good food. If this venerable Mei is killed by us later, I naturally don't dare to have extravagant hopes for the Xiandan, but I hope that 3rd Sovereign can bestow the corpse to me. With such soft skin and tender meat, it must be delicious. Go Buhuan said seriously. When he said that, everyone's face turned strange. Zi Jinghong suddenly felt a wave of discomfort in his stomach. He almost couldn't help but open his mouth and spit on Venerable Mei's face. But then he thought about it again. This excuse was a great opportunity to attack Venerable Mei. So he forced himself to hold it in. He even squeezed out a smile and said, "This request is fine. If we can really kill Venerable Mei, and you've done a great job, then I'll let you enjoy her corpse. A man-eating beast will eventually be eaten by humans, this is indeed karma." Both of them did not purposely lower their voices, so everyone heard it clearly. Mei Shuyan did not understand what was going on at first, but when she saw Go Buhuan's drooling face, she was so angry that her pretty face turned pale. Although she was a mystical beast, she had always been clean. Since she was born, she had only eaten spiritual fruits and spiritual herbs. When had she ever eaten human flesh? Now that she heard Zi Jinghong's slander, she was about to explode. Jun Moxie, on the other hand, was also fuming with anger, and he rolled his eyes. F***ck. Where did this half-human, half-ghost trash come from? Jun Moxie looked at Go Buhuan and pretended to be surprised. Who didn't tighten his belt? Why did you show yourself? Look at your bald head, it's so F***king awesome. There's even a hoop in the middle, no wonder your mouth is full of filth. Go Buhuan was stunned. He did not understand the classic curse from Earth that Jun Moxie had casually mentioned, and after pondering for a few times, he finally understood. Some people behind him who were quick-witted couldn't help but burst out laughing. It had to be said that Jun Moxie's metaphor just now was too vivid. Go Buhuan had a slender figure, and his head was round and shiny, without a single strand of hair. Above his ears there were some sparse hair, but the quality of his hair was not good, and it was more or less curly. The people from the two Holy Lands had interacted with Go Bu Huan for a long time, and they didn't think much of him. But today, after hearing what Jun Moxie said, the people here, except for Mei Xueyan, all looked like men. The more they looked at him, the more they felt that he was similar. Many of them tried to restrain themselves, and finally, they coughed and laughed. Only Mei Xueyan looked at Jun Moxie suspiciously, and then looked at the group of wretched experts opposite her. She didn't know what Jun Moxie was talking about, and what these people were laughing about. Go Bu Huan couldn't help but blush, and his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. He roared, "Jun Moxie! How dare you scold me?" "Scold you? When did I scold you? You're such a strange person." Jun Moxie's face was full of surprise, and he touched his head, as if he didn't understand what was going on, and said in a strange voice, "Then tell me, how did I scold you? How did I scold you? Did I say a single dirty word? What kind of person are you? This world is full of money and goods, how can there be a place to be scolded?" Go Bu Huan flew into a rage, and his nostrils were almost emitting smoke. He roared, "You still dare to deny that you scolded me? You actually dare to deny it in front of so many people? Jun Moxie, you shameless villain, I won't forgive you. I'm confused. I'm really confused." Jun Moxie's face was full of innocence and confusion. Even if you want to kill someone, you should at least have a reason, right? Even if it's a groundless accusation, there should at least be some evidence, right? And you're saying that I scolded you just like that? You're really crazy. I've seen many people looking for trouble, and some looking for death, but this is the first time I've seen someone looking for trouble like you. You're still spouting nonsense. Just now you obviously scolded me as a chicken. Go Bu Huan jumped and roared, but he suddenly stopped, and his mouth was agape, and his face was full of embarrassment. What chicken? Why did I scold you as a chicken? Ridiculous. Jun Moxie's face was full of curiosity, and he said, "Please don't say half of what you're saying, okay? If you do that, you'll really die. I'm going to kill you." "Ah!" Go Bu Huan roared, and he pounced forward with his claws and fangs bared. He was extremely furious, and he almost fell for this despicable brat's trick just now. It was really dangerous, and if he had spat again, he would have really scolded himself, but even so, a large group of people behind him were already rolling on the floor laughing. Everyone here was a man who didn't know what that chicken was. Chapter 590. If Go Bu Huan did not go in by himself, then he would be attacked by a group of people. This guy had already been beaten up quite a few times in the past few days. He was in a depressed mood, especially when he did not know how he had offended everyone. I didn't want to eat human flesh in the first place either. Wasn't that too much of a push? Would I starve to death? But later, I felt that human flesh tasted really special and delicious, so who wouldn't eat delicious food? Damn it, everyone has their own preferences, you guys can't control my taste. Jun Moxie's body flashed, and he ran. He defended himself as he ran. "I'm not scolding you. I'm telling the truth. If you don't believe me, go back and look at yourself in the mirror. It really looks like it. Didn't you see that I almost opened my pants just now to see if there was nothing down there? If my thing suddenly pops out and spouts nonsense, I won't be able to face anyone. Luckily, it's not mine." Go Bu Huan was so angry that he shouted loudly. He was so angry that he couldn't restrain his anger. The thin hair on his head curled and floated in the air. It could be considered as bristling with anger, although it was a little thinner and curled up. It really looks like it. Go Bu Huan was jumping and jumping as he chased after Jun Moxie like a big monkey. Jun Moxie was running away in a panic. Suddenly, he turned around and shouted in surprise, "Wow! The hair on your head is floating. It looks even more like it. Can you not look like it?" At this moment, Go Bu Huan was obviously mad with anger. He felt as if his lungs were about to explode. He roared and roared, he shouted and screamed. He did not care about anything else. He crossed his palms and a gust of strong wind rolled up like a hurricane. It rushed towards June Mosia with a force that could topple mountains and overturn the seas. June Mosia cried out in panic. Then, his body flashed, and he suddenly disappeared. Gobu Huan's eyes were bloodshot as he bombarded madly. He was indeed a master of the supreme martial artist level. He only managed to cause a large area of the surrounding snowy land to roll up along with the snowflakes. The snowflakes filled the sky and the soil swirled in the air. The momentum was terrifying. At this moment, he suddenly felt a pain on his head. He was shocked and rushed forward. When he turned around, he realized that June Moxie was actually behind him. Seeing June Moxie turn around, June Moxie shouted, "Oh my God!" and ran away. Gobu Huan was not willing to let him go. He roared and chased after him. With one chasing and one running, it was as if they had returned to the original spot in the middle of the confrontation. June Moxie suddenly stopped running. Instead, he retreated and rushed forward. In the blink of an eye, he was already in front of Gobu Huan. His movement technique was extremely fast. Gobu Huan was rushing forward with all his strength, but June Moxie suddenly appeared in front of him. He was shocked and almost cried out in surprise. However, he was overjoyed. He thought to himself, "You brat, you are courting death." He crossed his palms and slashed down with a ferocious smile. At this moment, he suddenly felt his legs go soft. It was as if there was a trap below him, and he felt a sense of danger. Instantly, he was shocked and rushed upwards. His feet had just left the ground when June Mosia had already gone straight for his lower body. Bang! 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 4 consecutive kicks landed on his calf joint. Taking advantage of the momentum, June Mosia used the tip of his right foot to trip on Gobu Huan's ankle. Gobu Huan let out a loud cry and fell straight forward like a wooden stake. He didn't stop rushing forward. The snowy ground was especially slippery. It was as if he was sitting on a slide towards his own camp. Ha 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 ha. Suddenly, a fellow couldn't help but hold his stomach and laugh. He laughed so hard that tears came out. His right hand held his stomach and his left hand trembled as he pointed at Gobu Huan, who was sliding towards him at high speed. He laughed so hard that he almost couldn't breathe. When everyone saw this, they couldn't help but laugh too. A few of them who didn't have a good relationship with Gobu Huan even squatted on the ground and used their hands to slap the ground. Their bodies were convulsing, and they didn't have the demeanor of a master in the world. Even leaders like Zi Jinghong and Xiao Weiqing couldn't help but laugh when they saw this. Their shoulders trembled and their bodies twitched. They lost their dignified and steady demeanor, because the scene in front of them was really too funny. Gobu Huan was seen sliding along the surface of the snow, trying his best to raise his head. On his smooth and shiny head, a circle of fine fluffy hair floated neatly behind him. In the middle of his smooth and round head, there was actually an additional red fingerprint. His scalp was originally very white. At this moment, the fingerprint was even more eye-catching. It was like a cinnabar mole on his scalp. When everyone thought of June Moxie's metaphor, they were overjoyed. Now, it's more like it. It turned out that June Mosia had ruthlessly jabbed his finger on the top of his head at some point in time. Moreover, the position was exceptionally narrow. This finger was really good. June Moxie was also shocked when he saw this. It was an accident, absolutely an accident. The heavens can bear witness that young Master June really did not do it on purpose this time. He had originally wanted to use a little more force to kill this fellow with a single finger, but who knew that this fellow's instincts were so sharp? The moment his head felt something, he had already pounced forward with all his might, causing young Master June to not even have the time to exert any force, only leaving behind a rather clear and ambiguous red finger mark. If this fingerprint was on other people's head, it wouldn't be a big deal. It was just a fingerprint, what could it be? After all, most people had hair. But now it was on Gobu Huan's bald head. It was meaningful, and there was a lot of room for imagination. The laughter in the basin shook the sky. Those who didn't know would never think that there was a life-and-death fight here. Instead, they would think that there was a party here. What a happy laughter! It must be a wonderful show. Gobu Huan, who did not know what was going on, jumped up from the snowy ground with a flushed face. He thought that everyone was laughing at him for falling into such a sorry state. His face and neck were still red as he argued loudly, "What are you laughing at? Victory and defeat are common in soldiers. I haven't lost yet. I just accidentally fell. Jun Moxie, if you have the guts, let's fight for another 300 rounds." As he said this, his slender tongue slipped out habitually, and licked up and down. The laughter around him became even louder at this moment. Everyone was staring at his bald head, sizing it up carefully with great interest. There were even a few people who unconsciously spread their legs and glanced at their own crotches, then laughed even more wretchedly. In the distance, there was another figure coming at a high speed. He was about to pass by this place, but he was attracted by the laughter. This person was wearing a snow-white robe, and it was no different from the color of snow. His figure was swift, and in a flash, he disappeared without a trace. In terms of speed, he might not be slower than Jun Moxie's yin-yang escape technique. Moreover, his movement was strange, and he appeared and disappeared like a ghost. He seemed to be on the left, but in fact, he was on the right. He looked at the front and looked at the back. It was somewhat similar to Jun Moxie's Qin Gong. That person's face was covered with a white veil, and his face couldn't be seen clearly. But judging from the color of his hair, he should be at least 40 or 50 years old. Hearing this sudden laughter, that person quickly turned around, and stopped in the air for less than a tenth of a blink of time. Then, he disappeared. When he reappeared in the next moment, he had already traversed a distance of several tens of feet, and silently hid behind a large rock. It was as if a large piece of light snowflake had silently stuck onto that big rock, and had even fused with it. There were 50 to 60 experts from the 3 holy lands below, and any one of them was not an ordinary person. But even with so many experts, not a single one of them had noticed that there was actually an additional observer in this barren mountain range. Although the people from the 3 holy lands did not notice, it did not mean that no one else had noticed. At least 2 people had keenly sensed that something was amiss: Jun Moxie and Mei Shuyan. After Jun Moxie had been surrounded by the allied forces of the 2 Holy Lands, he had long activated the Hongjun Pagoda's divine sense. How powerful and dense was the Hongjun Pagoda's divine sense! It could be said that there was nothing that they couldn't see. Not to mention a living person, even if it was a snowflake that had just fallen, or a cockroach that had just run across the ground, they could still sense it clearly. This was already beyond the scope of a human's ability, and was not the fault of a person's strength. But Mei Shuyan was already a venerable, and her divine sense was naturally more sensitive than a human's. Moreover, in front of a powerful enemy, she had already focused all her attention. Although that person's Qin Gong was outstanding, and his Xian cultivation was profound, it was not higher than Mei Shuyan's. So, how could he escape from Mei Shuyan's all-out search? The moment they discovered this person, Jun Moxie and Mei Shuyan looked at each other at the same time, and gave each other a meaningful glance. Then, they secretly communicated with each other using telepathy. Someone is coming. This person's strength is very high. I don't know if he is a friend or foe. This was Jun Moxie. As expected, the person's strength is not bad. His Qin Gong is even better, and he may not be weaker than you and me. At this moment, he is observing, and has not shown himself. His intentions are not obvious, and it is difficult to guess. Or it could be an ambush by the 3 Holy Lands. Mei Shuyan thought carefully. I don't think so. If it was really an ambush by the 3 Holy Lands, how could they only send one person? Moreover, this person chose to hide himself, and it seems like this is going to be interesting. A strange smile appeared in Jun Moxie's eyes. In that case, even if that person is not a friend, he may not be an enemy either? Mei Shiyan's eyes brightened. We'll act according to the situation. This person's strength is not weak, and his qinggong is even more amazing. If it comes to a critical moment, we might as well drag this guy into the muddy water. You should know that in this world, there are not many people who have this kind of qinggong. Jun Moxie's smile was very evil, and Mei Shiyan could not help but roll her eyes at him. Behind the stone in the distance, the person who came later quietly poked his head out and looked down. Then, his eyes widened, and his mouth opened into a circle through the veil. Then, he carefully retracted his head, and a fine layer of cold sweat had already seeped out of his forehead. He felt that his mind was in a trance, and he almost fainted. What the hell? It was actually a group of experts from the 3 Holy Lands. Moreover, there were so many people lined up to train. Motherf ****. Could it be that they want to ambush me here? Who did I offend? Why are all the people from the Great Golden City looking for me like crazy? After they found me, there was a big fight. Everyone seemed to have an irreconcilable hatred towards me, as if I had killed my father and snatched my wife away from me. Chapter 591. Even if you want my life, you should at least let me know the reason, right? Just like that, I was pulled out without any reason, and then I was repeatedly hunted down. Every day there were a few scares. I had no choice but to run into this remote mountain in this snowy weather, and I actually met so many of them here. Is it easy for me? Who the hell did I offend? Not only the Supreme Golden City, but even the illusory Blood Sea is here, and there are so many of them? There are at least 40 of them. Is it necessary? Then, is the one leading them Zi Jinghong? At this moment, the white-robed man cursed in his heart. Damn it! Aren't they overestimating me? More than 40 people were sent out at once, and the lowest was a supreme-level expert. There are so many above supreme-level experts. Even if I am the supreme assassin, I can't handle so many people. What is this? Are these experts all cabbages in the 3 Holy Lands? They are just throwing them out like they don't cost anything. I have already met more than 100 of them during my escape. If not for the fact that I have made a breakthrough recently, and that I am good at escaping, I am afraid I would already be lying on the ground counting the worms. His heart was filled with indignation, but he didn't dare to show it on his face. He didn't even dare to take a deep breath. He was extremely vexed and wanted to slap himself a few times. Chu Chi-hun, Chu Chi-hun. In any case, you're the king of assassins of your generation. You're a person who has seen the world, yet you're still acting like a child with curiosity. What does it have to do with you whether people like to laugh or cry here? You just had to come and take a look. Alright, this is going to be lively. As the saying goes, it is easy to come in, but difficult to leave. This is equivalent to setting yourself here. Lying on the ground now is not flying in the air. As long as you move a little, you will be discovered by the people below. Just now, he did not notice because he was laughing there. Now that the laughter had stopped and his spiritual sense had recovered, he would be discovered immediately if he moved a little. As for what would happen after he was discovered, he only felt a bitter taste in his mouth. Is there a need to say it? With so many experts surrounding and intercepting him, even if his abilities were doubled, it would still be of no use. Wouldn't he be easily swallowed by them like pickled vegetables? This white-robed man was the Xian continent's Black Pot King of this generation. Wrong, it should be the king of assassins of this generation, the supreme assassin Chu Chi-hun. It could be said that this supreme assassin was having a bad year recently. After he went into seclusion, there were still legends about him in the pugilistic world, and they had been greatly upgraded. In the past, he was at most a supreme assassin, and it seemed like he had not really killed any supreme assassins. But now, he was a real supreme assassin, and he had killed more than one person. What an illustrious name! As the saying goes, although I am no longer in the martial arts world, the martial arts world is still talking about me. However, almost no one knew that this supreme killer's fame was all because he was a scapegoat for others. He could be said to be the supreme scapegoat, or even the supreme scapegoat. Recently, all the good deeds that the evil monarch Jun Moxie had done, as long as there were no clues, were all put under the name of this Chu Chihuan. Whether it was reasonable or not, in any case, Chu Chihuan was muddle-headed and was very happy to be a scapegoat. To be unknowingly a scapegoat to this extent, Chu Chihuan could be considered as the first person in history. Unfortunately, there was no room for explanation for all these scapegoats he had carried. Who would listen to the supreme killer's explanation? Were they retarded? Even if they did not have a brain, or if there was mold growing in their brains, they would not be so unwise. Therefore, Chu Chi-hun was really down on his luck during this period of time. He had just successfully made a breakthrough in his closed-door training for a few years and happily ended his closed-door training. His ambition was soaring as he reappeared in the world, and he was planning to take on a few good business deals. He was even thinking of making a move on a supreme martial artist or something, so that he would be able to live up to his name and boost his prestige. Then, he would see if there was a chance to find a few experts to spar with his new moves. It had to be said that the supreme killer's luck was still very good, because his wishes were quickly realized, although the way they were realized was somewhat different. For example, once he came out, his plan to take on a few jobs directly fell through, because now that his reputation still needed to be revived, it was directly like the sun in the sky, much better than in the past. And to move a supreme master, it seemed that there were already a few supreme masters under his name. It was simply a dream fulfilled, and it was achieved inexplicably. This was not the end, because he still had another wish, but this wish did not need to be realized by himself, because very soon there would be many experts looking for him to learn from. Moreover, it was the kind of life-or-death kind of learning from each other, wave after wave. Such intensive learning from each other made the Supreme Killer complain incessantly. Of course, the Supreme Killer did not know the reason for all this glory at all. Chu Chihuan never thought that once he came out of seclusion and reappeared in the world, he would be directly targeted, and then a few Supreme Masters came to his door. After a big battle, Chu Chihuan was outnumbered and he fled. He thought that this matter was over, and it was okay to suffer some losses carelessly, since they were from the Supreme Golden City. I am a lone killer, I can't afford to offend them. Who knew that not only was this not the end, it was simply the beginning of a nightmare. Because the learning from each other had been upgraded, the people who came were not fighting one-on-one, but directly bullying him. After a few consecutive battles, Chu Chihuan finally felt that something was wrong. What is going on? At first, he could still use the breakthrough that he had just made to fight with some ease, and he felt that he was getting more and more familiar with it. But then the number of Supreme Masters increased from 2 to 4. Chu Chihuan had to directly run away, and then it was even more outrageous. They directly sent out 8 Supreme Masters to surround and intercept him. And then, it was directly not outrageous, it should be called cruel. Above Supreme Masters and more than one. O God, O Earth, why is my life so bitter? Who did I offend? I didn't King dig the graves of the ancestors of the great Golden City. Chu Chi-hun recited all the wicked things he had done and was puzzled. What did I do to offend these ancestors? Is there a need to be so unforgiving? At this moment, Gobu Huan, who was in the middle of the field, was so angry that he could not catch his breath. He finally understood why everyone was laughing. He turned around and pointed a trembling finger at Jun Moxie. It was almost as if someone had stepped on a male duck and strangled its throat. He cried out in a heart-wrenching voice, "Jun Moxie, you despicable B*****! This old man and you are irreconcilable." Jun Moxie twitched his mouth. Definitely irreconcilable. Weren't you still lying on your stomach just now? How to stand? Do you think you are standing by straightening your neck? Let me tell you that is far from it. You are still lacking a chest and a small belly. Don't be so self-righteous. This thing of yours will definitely not be of use. Even if you have that kind of heart, there must be someone who can tolerate it. He thought for a while, and said in a certain tone, "It's definitely not possible to deal with a human, but even if it's against an elephant, I'm afraid it's still not possible. You are really too overbearing." Gobu Huan was so angry that he opened his mouth, and couldn't say a word for a long time, but his long tongue was hanging out like a hanged ghost, swaying in the air, and panting heavily. Zi Jinghong coughed loudly for a few times, and looked at everyone seriously, which meant, "Don't laugh, you are one of us after all." Only then did everyone manage to stop laughing, and some of them had a very strange look on their faces, trying their best to hold back their laughter. Finally, some of them couldn't hold back their laughter, and burst out laughing again, and hurriedly covered their mouths with their hands, but Zi Jinghong's cold gaze had already shot over to them. These few people hurriedly put on a serious face, and thought, "What are you staring at? Are you really that serious? Weren't you also laughing quite happily just now? Only officials are allowed to set fires, but people are not allowed to light lamps. If you don't laugh, even we can't laugh. It's really a serious bureaucratic problem." Turning to June Moxie, Zi Jinghong said seriously, "June Moxie, we are enemies, but which one of our people is not a famous person? You have gone too far by humiliating them so wantonly. After all, Gobu Huan is also your senior, right?" "Too far? Senior?" June Moxie opened his mouth wide. "Let's be clear, who is going too far? He is a senior? How could a senior chase after me like this? Is this what a so-called senior should do? Can't I dodge and fight back? Zi Jinghong, from what you're saying, should I just stand there obediently and let your subordinates kill me? Only then would it not be too much? June Mo Xie, you obviously know that I didn't mean it like that, but you're still trying to distort the truth." Zi Jinghong was furious. This brat was twisting words and forcing logic, and had a sharp tongue. He was really not easy to deal with. "How did I distort the truth? Isn't what I said the truth? Then tell me, what do you mean? At the very most, I'm just using a trick to escape. You can't possibly think that I can really beat him, right?" June Moxie said righteously, "You asked me, who is less than 20 years old, to fight with an old monster who is more than 100 years old, and you say that I am going too far? Zi Jinghong, how can you say that? I really feel sorry for you. It's not a good thing for a person to be too shameless. Can a person really be invincible in the world?" Zi Jinghong was so angry that her lungs were about to explode. She roared and said, "He attacked you, and it was indeed ungracious of him as a senior, but you humiliated him and made him a laughingstock. What is your intention?" "How did I humiliate him?" June Moxie stood up indignantly. "Who humiliated him? Zi Jinghong, you have to explain to me about this matter. Can you blame me for looking like this since he already looks like this? I'm just telling the truth. Don't you agree? The one who humiliated him. Well, you have to ask his parents. They are the ones who are bad, you know. How can you blame me? Do you think I am his father?" Chapter 592. Zi Jinghong was so angry that he let out a loud roar. "Kill! Everyone attack! Surround them and kill them!" Zi Jinghong had finally come to a realization. He had finally understood that if he were to continue to argue, he would definitely not be able to win against this brat. In fact, he might even be angered to death by him. If he were to really die from being angered to death by him, that would be too unjust. Following Zi Jinghong's command, the 30 men from the illusory Blood Sea and the 13 men from the Great Golden City charged forward at the same time. The leader of the Great Golden City, Xiao Weiqing, did not say anything else. Even when everyone was laughing, he still stared at Mei Xian fiercely, his eyes filled with hatred. It was because of her, because of this woman, that he had caused the deaths of his 15 old brothers without a trace. 2 of his brothers were killed by Mei Xuan. Because of his cowardice, he did not dare to accept the challenge, and could only watch as she swaggered away with her lover. This was the biggest humiliation in Xiao Weiqing's life. A great humiliation. A great humiliation that could not be washed away. If he did not kill Mei Xuan, this humiliation would become a demon in Xiao Weiqing's heart, and it would haunt him for the rest of his life. This point, Xiao Weiqing was very clear and very clear. Therefore, he did not speak. He had been accumulating his strength, and was ready to strike at any time. Kill this evil woman. The encirclement had been formed, and even if Mei Xuan had wings, she would not be able to escape. Now that Mei Xuan was killed, it would be the supreme killer Chu Chihuan's turn. He did not know if that killer had been executed yet. It had been almost half a month since he had spread the news. There was news from the outside that he had fought with Chu Chihuan a few times, but he had escaped. This made Xiao Weiqing both angry and hopeful at the same time. He hoped that Chu Chihuan could live for a long time. If he could personally send him on his way, that would be the most pleasing thing to him. Jun Moxie. You little bastard. That bastard who should be struck by lightning. Did you enjoy pranking me just now? Hand over your life to me now. Go Buhuan roared like thunder and pounced towards Jun Moxie with a malevolent expression. He hated Jun Moxie to the core. Even though he knew that Jun Moxie had a powerful master behind him that he could not afford to offend, Go Buhuan did not care about anything else. I must kill this brat. Because he had already trampled on her dignity, mercilessly trampled on her. He had become the biggest joke in the 3 Holy Lands. The reputation that he had built up over the years was destroyed in a single day. But in the end, he could only blame himself for this. If he had not said that he wanted to eat Mei Xuan's flesh, Jun Moxie would not have made such a vicious prank on him. He could only blame himself for bringing this upon himself. What did others have to do with him? The battle unfolded in an instant. Mei Xuan held her sword in her hand and pounced forward like a whirlwind, facing the attack head-on. Facing attacks from all directions, she could only take the initiative to attack first. Only then could she avoid the other 3 attacks and reduce the pressure on her. Mei Xuan's battle experience was extremely rich. She did not have the heart to hold back anymore. She did not even hesitate as she quickly came up with a plan to deal with the enemy. Jun Moxie's body also swayed, as if he wanted to follow Mei Xuan forward. But in reality, his body seemed to be advancing, but he was actually retreating. Suddenly, he somersaulted and retreated rapidly. Go Buhuan's bald head was ferocious, and the veins on his neck were bulging. He was like a giant tortoise that had just emerged from the water, riding the wind and breaking the waves. In each of his hands, he was holding a strange weapon. If one were to call it a sword, it was curved. If one were to call it a knife, it was curved too much, almost like a barb. The correct way to call it was a hook. Go Buhuan's hook. Jun Moxie's body slid out like a fish, but he did not forget to tease Go Buhuan. Go Buhuan, you really live up to your family name. Your surname is Go, and your tongue is always sticking out like a dog's tongue. Even your head has a groove, and your weapon is a hook. I really admire you. There has never been a dog that is so well-rounded. You are really a rare flower in this world. Go Buhuan did not say a word. He hooked both of his hooks, as if he wanted to break Jun Moxie's body into 2. Jun Moxie let out a loud cry. It was as if he could not dodge in time. His body was hooked by the hooks on his right hand. Go Buhuan was overjoyed. He roared, "Damn you, go to hell!" and retracted his hooks with all his might. At the moment when he exerted all his strength, he suddenly realized that what he hooked was only air. He used the wrong amount of strength. At the same time, he felt his legs go soft. Even though Go Buhuan did not know what was going on, he was prepared for it after suffering a loss once. He immediately left his original position and continued to chase after Jun Moxie. Jun Moxie seemed to be in a difficult situation. He covered his head and ran away like a rat. Gobu Huan was hot on his heels. The two of them ran and chased each other. In the blink of an eye, they turned around a big rock and disappeared. Mei Shuiyan's sword was like the wind. It was ever-changing. She was able to fend off the 6 experts who were surrounding her. At this moment, the battle was not too big. The rest of the people were watching from the side, ready to help at any time. Zi Jinghong was an astute person. He would not allow his subordinates to be injured or killed. At least, he did not want too many casualties. Therefore, he divided the available manpower into 7 groups. The people from the illusory blood sea were divided into 5 groups. The 13 people from the Supreme Golden City were divided into 2 groups. Each group only needed to exchange a few blows. Regardless of the outcome, they would immediately retreat. Then, the second group would come forward. Those who did not participate in the battle were to recover their energy. They were ready to attack at any time. They also had to prevent Mei Shuiyan from escaping. He had to admit that this was the best way to deal with Mei Shuiyan. Attrition. As long as you can't leave, you will have to stay with us. We have a total of 43 top-notch experts. No matter how profound your Xian Qi is, we will still be able to exhaust you to death. If this continued, the 2 Holy Lands could still afford to drag it out until next year, because they could rest at any time. However, Mei Shuiyan did not have any room to rest. Don't ask for merits. Just don't make mistakes. Everyone, pay attention. You just need to make sure she doesn't stop. But first, ensure your own safety. Zi Jinghong ordered loudly. His face was serious. Although he did not look at Xiao Weiqing, his words were directed at Xiao Weiqing. Currently, the biggest weakness of the Allied forces was Xiao Weiqing's desire for revenge. If Xiao Weiqing really fought with all his might, he would have a chance to injure Mei Shuiyan. However, that would definitely trigger her to use her ultimate skill. The range of the ultimate skill that Venerable Mei knew was very wide. Moreover, it was very loud. If that happened, as long as Mei Shuiyan was not dead, she would have a chance to escape in the chaos. It was better to wait for the frog to be cooked in warm water. Anyway, I have a lot of patience. Zi Jinghong was very proud of his strategy. But at the same time, it was because of the Hermitage incident that prompted him to make this decision. The 29 experts of the Hermitage were slaughtered by Mei Shuiyan. This incident was too shocking for Zi Jinghong. The biggest shock was just now, because Zi Jinghong suddenly realized that Mei Shuiyan did not seem to be injured at all. This was unbelievable. So, Zi Jinghong only asked for no mistakes, not for merits. If Mei Shuiyan's cultivation had really reached that kind of earth-shattering level, they should be able to escape in time. Previously, they had made it clear that they were all comrades and this was just a spar. But this kind of encirclement was the best way to see a person's strength. With just a few rounds of observation, Zi Jinghong would be able to accurately judge Mei Shuiyan's real strength. The difference would not be too big. At that time, although the encirclement would continue, the strength and threat would increase again. Behind the big rock on the hillside, Chu Chihuan held his breath as he watched. How many times could he see such an intense battle in his life? Chu Chihuan sighed in his heart. Especially that fairy-like beauty, she was actually so terrifying. One should know that it was the joint attack of 2 superior supreme experts and 4 supreme martial artists, but she was not at a disadvantage at all. She even had the upper hand. There was actually such a terrifying woman in the world. And she was so beautiful. Chu Chihuan was shocked. Fighting against the 3 Holy Lands alone? Just this point alone was enough to make Chu Chihuan admire her, because he would never dare to. But this supreme assassin also heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. So these people did not set up an ambush for me. I was scared to death just now. Damn it, I have become a frightened bird these few days. But it was not bad to watch the show. Some movement skills, sword skills, and moves could also be compared with what he had comprehended recently. It would be very beneficial. So this supreme assassin finally felt relieved. Although he still carefully restrained his aura, he focused on this rare battle of expert. The more he watched, the more he learned. The more he watched, the more excited he became, and the more he felt that this trip was not in vain. In the field, Mei Shuyan looked as calm and elegant as usual. She was not anxious at all. As for the two Holy Lands, they had already changed their people 3 times. These people were indeed very slippery. They all knew that the sword in Mei Shuyan's hand was a divine weapon, so they carefully controlled their own weapons to not come into contact with her sword. The 6 of them changed their positions, circling around Mei Shuyan and fighting. Mei Shuyan's breath was long. Although she knew what the opponents were planning, she was not anxious. She did not even have the intention to change her tactic, because she was waiting for Jun Moxie. Jun Moxie must have his reasons for leading Go Buhuan away, so Mei Shuyan was waiting. If Jun Moxie did not come back, she would not leave even if these people chased her away. Moreover, it was just a fight now. Mei Shuyan's strength had broken through several times recently. With her current strength, it was impossible for her to be surrounded by these people. As long as she wanted to leave, she could do so at any time. At the end of the battle, Mei Shuyan's body suddenly turned, and her sword suddenly changed. It became as light as the wind, invisible and traceless. Suddenly, the wind was howling, and suddenly, the wind was gentle. Suddenly, the wind was cold, and suddenly, the autumn wind was sorrowful. When she used this set of mysterious sword skills, it gave people a clear feeling. They could feel the different sword wills in her sword skills. Chapter 593. Another 6 people came out with their swords and joined the battle, passing by the previous group. Everyone's goal was very clear. It was the moment when the person they replaced made the last attack and retreated. Their own attacks would then follow up with a seamless attack, leaving no chance for the enemy to create chaos. The group that had retreated quickly returned to the middle of the crowd. Only then did they begin to breathe slightly more rapidly. Some of them only started to sweat after taking a few breaths. How could they dare to be careless when facing an expert like Mei Shuyan? Even though it was just a roaming battle, they were still under great pressure. It wasn't easy at all, because, even if it was a roaming battle, as long as there was a flaw, Mei Shuyan would be able to kill them in an instant. At this time, Mei Shuyan's marvelous swordplay had come to an end. The 6 people had seen her swordplay once, and although they didn't fully understand it, they had a general idea of it. So, it wasn't too difficult for them to deal with it. But at this moment, Mei Shuyan's swordplay changed again. The change was more abrupt, and it became long and dense, like the drizzle of spring rain, continuous and continuous. From the sky to the ground, everything was hazy. The 6 people fighting with her seemed to feel the warmth of spring in the misty rain of spring, and they felt that their hair was wet. Facing such a strange swordplay, the 6 experts were caught off guard. But they had hundreds of years of fighting experience, and although they were surprised, they didn't panic, and they were able to keep their footing. Even after panicking for a while, they could use their rich experience or barbaric and unreasonable moves to slowly turn the tables. But Mei Shuyan's swordplay changed again. Suddenly, it was like a summer storm had suddenly fallen from the sky, and the raindrops were as big as beans, mixed with the majesty of heaven and earth whistling down. The 6 people simultaneously felt that they were in a vast ocean. The sky was still densely packed with hemp rod-like raindrops falling from the sky. The 6 of them were in a sorry state. With a few swings of her sword, 3 of them were wounded. One of them even had his shoulder slumped. He had been pierced by Mei Shuyan's sword. If not for the other 5 people's timely assistance, he would have died under Mei Shuyan's sword. Next group. Zi Jinghong's face was frighteningly gloomy. From the beginning until now, Mei Xueyan had already used 5 or 6 sets of magical swordsmanship. Where did she learn these strange things? I've never heard of the Tian Fa Forest Xian beasts placing so much emphasis on weapons. In these 10,000 years, it seems like the only weapon that has been passed down is the extremely powerful Tian Fa Heaven Punishing Sword. What was going on? How strange. Another group was swapped out, and this time, the people who were swapped out were in a much more miserable state. The new blood from the 2 Holy Lands had just arrived, and they thought that they had already grasped about 60 to 70% of Venerable Mei's swordplay. Even if they could not break it, it should not be a problem for them to protect themselves. But the heavens did not follow their wishes, and Mei Xueyan's swordplay actually changed again. This time, it was like the lingering autumn rain, desolate and bleak, and endless vicissitudes of life. It was like the endless rustling of fallen trees, and the entire sky was filled with the desolate autumn wind. In a split second, the world was filled with desolation. Desolation filled the eyes. The 6 people who had just gone up were originally prepared and full of confidence. But the moment they faced the attack, they realized that it was not what they had expected. It was completely different from what they had expected. When experts exchanged blows, the slightest difference could lead to a difference of 1,000 miles. The slightest difference could mean the difference between life and death. Not to mention that there were so many accidents happening now. How could they win? The 6 people only felt that the world was filled with desolation and cold rain, but there was killing intent everywhere. In just an instant, they were actually in a more miserable state than the 6 people who had retreated earlier. This kind of extraordinary swordplay was not only unseen, it was also unheard of. If it was just the ingenuity of the swordplay, it would be easier to deal with. After all, with the rich experience of a supreme martial artist, in addition to the toughness of his body, a normal Tian Xian cultivator might not even be able to hurt him even if he did not move. But the person who was using the sword was Venerable Mei. This was a headache. Not only was his Xian cultivation far above everyone else, the sword he was using was a divine weapon. Wouldn't that be even more tragic? Although the strength of a supreme martial artist was powerful, in the face of Venerable Mei who was wielding a sword, it was no different from tofu. Not to mention that it was a divine weapon, even if it was just a normal sword, they would not dare to use their bodies to fight against it. In addition to such an ingenious and strange swordplay, it was even more difficult to deal with. Zi Jinghong saw that the situation was not good and shouted, "Another group!" Xiao Weiqing roared and led his men to charge forward. At this moment, it had become a situation where 12 people were attacking Mei Xueyan together. Only then did they gradually stabilize their position and not lose instantly. But as the number of people increased, the scope of the battle naturally expanded as well. Zi Jinghong, who was watching from the side, felt more and more uneasy. Facing a total of 12 top-notch experts, the pressure suddenly increased and the burden was more than doubled. Mei Xueyan laughed coldly and did not show any signs of fear. A wave of sword light fell like the autumn rain. Xiao Weiqing roared like thunder and did not retreat. He actually took the lead and charged forward. The sharp sword qi pierced 2 small holes on his body. Although it did not penetrate deeply, blood still flowed out. The great golden city's 3 pearls throned Xiao Weiqing, who could be ranked in the top 3 among the experts from the 2 Holy Lands, was actually injured in one move. Moreover, it was under the situation where 12 people were working together to deal with one person. Such a battle record was truly shocking. But Xiao Weiqing's injury also came with a corresponding price. In this round of collision, he single-handedly withstood more than half of Mei Xueyan's attack. The pressure that the others had to bear was naturally greatly reduced. In a flash, they were able to escape from the great danger of being suppressed, and the encirclement was also reduced. Mei Xueyan's face was calm and tranquil. Suddenly, she flew up and stepped on the tip of a supreme martial artist's sword. The supreme martial artist's sword was stepped on and he wanted to use this opportunity to attack his enemy. But he was shocked to feel an enormous force coming from the sword. The force was like a bolt of lightning and the force was so strong that it could not be resisted. Boom! The force went through the sword, through his arm, into his meridians, and headed straight for his heart. Wah! He felt as if his heart was hit by a 10,000-pound hammer. His face turned as white as paper and he staggered backward. Before he could stop, he spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground. He had lost all his fighting power. Zi Jinghong leaped up, grabbed the injured expert's body, and quickly retreated. When he looked at the scene once again, the situation had changed drastically. Mei Shuyan stepped on the sword to defeat the enemy. She jumped up and swung her sword. Suddenly, the whole weather seemed to have changed from the deep autumn to the bleak winter. A moment ago, it was still the bleak autumn wind, but now it was the freezing winter. The cold wind blew and snowflakes were falling from thousands of miles away. The sword was like snow and frost, drifting down and flying in the air. The cold wind sounded like the wailing of ghosts. The path of the sword changed again. Xiao Weiqing roared angrily. His white hair was now disheveled and his body was stained with blood. His attacks were the fiercest, but he was also the one who suffered the most injuries. The superb swordsmanship that Mei Shuyan used was from Jun Moxie. In the past few days, Jun Mo Xie had taught her a set of swordplay that he had learned in his previous life. This set of swordplay was murderous and fierce. It was ever-changing and all-encompassing. It was incomparably complex. Even the evil prince in his previous life spent 3 months to learn this set of swordsmanship by chance. Unexpectedly, Mei Shuyan was so talented that she had memorized the whole set of swordsmanship in less than 10 days. This made Jun Moxie open his mouth wide and almost dislocated. Damn, this girl is much smarter than me in my previous life. This set of swordsmanship contained the evolution process of the 4 seasons. It integrated the endless evolution of spring, summer, autumn, and winter, such as the rain in spring, the scorching summer, the bleak autumn wind, and the icy winter snow. It was also called 4 Seasons Killer Sword. Although it was said to be a set of swordplay, in reality, every season's transformation contained several variations. Even though Mei Shuyan was talented, she had only practiced it for a short period of time. Naturally, she was not proficient in it. Seeing that Zi Jinghong was actually using this kind of fighting style, she had to wait for Jun Mo Xie anyway. Since she had nothing better to do, she might as well use these people as practice. Unexpectedly, the effect was so good. Therefore, Mei Shuyan practiced one set of swordsmanship after another. Along the way, Mei Shuyan found that the power of this wonderful and complicated swordsmanship was so horrible. Although Mei Shuyan had expected it to be extraordinary, she did not expect that this set of swordsmanship would be so strange and powerful. This set of 4 seasons absolute killing sword technique naturally couldn't compare to Tian Fa's heaven-punishing sword technique in terms of lethality. But in terms of its nimbleness, exquisiteness, density, and its own concept, it was far superior to Tian Fa's heaven-punishing sword technique. Especially when using different states of mind to activate the sword will, every time she tried it, she would have a different understanding of it. Mei Shuyan suddenly realized that when she used this set of swordsmanship against her enemies, as the sword will evolved, it actually had a magical effect of improving her state of mind. This unexpected gain made her extremely happy. In this period of time, with the help of Jun Moxie's elixir, her cultivation had improved by leaps and bounds. Her speed of cultivation was also much faster than before. But as a martial arts expert, while Mei Shuyan was happy with the rapid improvement of her cultivation, she was secretly worried that if she only focused on improving her cultivation and neglected the improvement of her state of mind, it would not be good. It must be known that the corresponding advancement of Xian Qi required a certain level of state of mind to complement each other. If she only improved her cultivation but did not improve her state of mind, then it would be like holding a barrel of dynamite. At the critical moment of a breakthrough, she could be invaded by the demons in her heart and go berserk. This was the most important point of cultivating one's state of mind. Now that she had unexpectedly obtained this set of swordsmanship, it just so happened that it made up for the flaw in her state of mind. Although Jun Moxie had also learned this set of swordsmanship in his previous life, he was the king of assassins. His attacks had always pursued speed, accuracy, and ruthlessness. Naturally, he rarely used this kind of complicated swordsmanship and did not have the chance to use this set of swordsmanship against his enemies. So in this aspect, his comprehension was not as deep as Mei Shuiyan's. Chapter 594. If Zi Jinghong were to know that the method that he had racked his brains to come up with, which he thought was a foolproof, most reliable and effective method, had actually turned out to be the best whetstone to raise his opponent's strength, it was hard to imagine how depressed he would be. The only thing that Mei Shuiyan was worried about was, why did Jun Moxie lure that hateful Go Buhuan over? Mei Shuiyan's battle was in full swing, but Jun Moxie's battle had already ended. Go Buhuan's strength was only at the level of a supreme martial artist. With Jun Dashao's current strength, how could he win? On the other side, with a cold expression, Jun Moxie placed his sword on Go Buhuan's neck. Ling Ling looked at this disheveled supreme martial artist and shouted, "Kneel down! You damn thing!" Go Buhuan's eyes were filled with anger. He spat out a mouthful of saliva. "You're the damn thing. If you want to kill me, then kill me. You want me to kneel down? Dream on. You're cheap. Your bones are even more cheap. I want you to kneel down." Jun Moxie smiled cruelly and kicked twice. Go Buhuan screamed in pain. Both his knees were crushed by Jun Moxie's kick. He knelt down softly. When his broken legs touched the ground, he felt a sharp pain in his heart. His eyes rolled back and he was about to faint. However, Jun Moxie released a stream of spiritual energy in time to keep his mind clear. He didn't let him faint no matter what. He could only bear the endless pain with a clear mind. The two of them chased each other all the way here. Under Jun Moxie's ever-changing methods, Go Buhuan was sometimes trapped in a pit, sometimes covered in snow, sometimes frozen, and sometimes burned. He was already in a lot of pain. Jun Moxie didn't have to spend much effort to capture this black-skinned guy alive. "Go Buhuan, do you like to eat human flesh?" This was where the knot in Jun Moxie's heart lay. "Motherf *Ker, you son of AB *TCH, you actually want to eat my little Shuiyan. You really have guts. If I can't torture this bastard to death, how can I vent the anger in my heart?" Go Buhuan's words evoked Jun Moxie's endless killing intent. From then on, he made up his mind, I will not only kill this person. Moreover, he wanted to torture them to death. He wanted him to die a horrible death. "So what if I am? Jun Mo Xie, I want to tell you that I not only want to eat your lover's meat, but I also want to eat your brat's meat. Just you wait, I want to eat your entire Jun family's meat." Go Buhuan was in so much pain that his face was waxy yellow. Beads of sweat the size of soybeans dripped down, but he still held on and didn't let out a groan. His profound Xian energy had long been controlled by Jun Moxie, so he couldn't even self-destruct. His mouth full of teeth had been broken by Jun Moxie at the right time. It didn't cause him too much pain and didn't affect his speech. But if he wanted to bite his tongue to commit suicide, it was impossible. Only the roots of his teeth were left in his gums. How could he bite his tongue? "Your bones are really tough, worthy of the style of a great master. Even at this juncture, your mouth can still be so cheap. I have to write the word admire for you," Jun Moxie praised. He suddenly stretched out his hand and tore Go Buhuan's clothes, revealing a large piece of skin on his chest and back. He slowly said, Go Bu Huan, in my life, there are only two people that I hate to the bone, and I must kill them. The first one is Xiao Han from the Silver Blizzard City. You should be very happy now because you are the second one. Your biggest mistake isn't eating human flesh. It's that you wanted to eat my wife's flesh. You were so proud of yourself in front of so many people, but you didn't repent after being subdued by me, and you even dared to tell me that you want to eat the entire June family. If I don't serve you well, how can I face you? June Mosie smiled coldly. Not to mention the fact that you're from the illusory blood sea. We're all enemies. Even if you're the son of a deity, I'll still make you die in extreme agony. Don't worry, I won't kill you. You still have a period of time to enjoy your life. Although my bones are tough, I don't like it when others act tough in front of me. If I can't make you beg me for mercy, then I will not be called June Moxie. I, Go Bu Huan, have fallen into your trap today. I have nothing to say. It is easy for you to kill me, but if you want me to beg for mercy, June Moxie, you are wrong. If you have any skills, then show me. If I even frown, then I am not a real man. Go Bu Huan endured the pain in his knees and said through gritted teeth, Good man. Let's see how long a good man like you can stay tough. June Moxie opened his hand, and shwa-shwa sounds were heard as he made several bloody cuts on his chest and back. Go Bu Huan laughed sinisterly. June Moxie, is this all you have? I don't mind telling you, these petty tricks of yours are far from enough. Let me tell you, I not only love to eat the flesh of beautiful women, but I also love to eat the flesh of young men. Even if it is the flesh of old men, I will not refuse it. June Mosie, I'll raise your June family like pigs in a pen if I manage to escape. I'll slaughter them every few days. I will wash them clean and make them go well with wine. Ha ha ha. I heard that June Tian has been fighting for his entire life. He may be a little old, but his flesh must be very firm. I will definitely like to eat. And I heard that you are very lecherous. Your other mistress, Guan Han, is quite good-looking. June Moxie, I will take good care of her. I will eat her bit by bit, and I will not let her die. I will slowly listen to her moans. Ha ha ha. Go Bu Huan stuck out his red tongue like a pervert. His eyes were filled with malice as he looked at June Moxie. His entire person was immersed in a kind of cruel pleasure. I heard that there is also a duguxiaoyi, right? I will definitely have a good taste of such a little girl. Ha ha, there is a little girl in your room? What is her name again? I don't care, I will not let a single one of them go. I will eat the heart first, then the liver, and then, He suddenly screamed. You won't have this opportunity. Instead, the lives of your family members will be cut off because of these words of yours. Today, I will do as I said, and turn you into a bird from head to toe. Look forward to it. June Moxie said coldly. His face was expressionless. He held a handful of white salt in his hand, and gently sprinkled it on Go Bu Huan's wounds. Not a single bit was wasted. Go Bu Huan screamed. His voice was loud and mournful. His entire body was twitching. June Moxie stood beside him with an indifferent and expressionless face. He sprinkled white salt on Go Bu Huan's wounds and said in an indifferent manner, Is it comfortable, Go Bu Huan? This is the first appetizer. Go Bu Huan screamed. But he still smiled in pain and said, Comfortable, very comfortable. June Moxie, you have guts. This method is not bad. If I catch the June family one day, I will sprinkle salt on them like this before eating wine. You motherf asterisk cur, you bastard. You are a real man. Good dishes are coming one after another. June Moxie shook his head. He grabbed a handful of chili powder out of nowhere and sprinkled it evenly on Go Bu Huan's wounds. He said gently, Go Bu Huan, do you feel better now? Go Bu Huan's body stiffened. He wanted to cry out to vent the pain in his body, but he was held back by the extreme pain. He couldn't make a sound at all. The veins on his body suddenly bulged out from his muscles. His eyes almost popped out of their sockets. His pupils suddenly dilated, and then shrank. Although he heard June Moxie's words, he didn't have the strength to reply. He could only open his mouth and maintain the same posture. The pain was so intense that his whole body was cramping. What a tough bone! Damn it, you can still bear it. The endurance of a supreme master is really not just for show. It's boring to have vegetables but no soup. Let me help you make a bowl of soup to moisten your throat. June Moxie smiled, and casually made a grabbing motion in the air. Then, a large lump of snow suddenly appeared in his hand. June Moxie secretly activated his Xian Qi, and it turned into a big bowl of snow in a split second. Then, he threw 2 handfuls of chili powder into the bowl. Then, he grabbed a large handful of snow and melted it into the bowl. Then, he held the bowl with one hand. Not long after, the chili powder inside the bowl started to emit steam. But the surprising thing was that the bowl of snow didn't show any signs of melting. The chili powder started to boil. June Moxie suddenly pinched Go Buhuan's nose with one hand and poured the whole bowl of chili powder into Go Buhuan's mouth with the other. All of it went into Go Buhuan's stomach. Go Buhuan let out a strange cry. He could only feel a big ball of fire burning in his stomach. In an instant, his internal organs were on fire. He couldn't help but scream, "June Moxie! Kill me! Kill me! Do you surrender now?" June Moxie stood in front of him with his hands in his sleeves. "Go Buhuan, I saw that you were rather strong-willed previously. As long as you say that you're convinced, kneel down and kowtow to me, I'll kill you immediately. I won't let you suffer any more." "You don't think I will F you." Go Buhuan's eyes were about to split open. He still didn't relent. "Very good. You're really tough. Looks like I have to give you a proper meal." June Moxie's body swayed and suddenly disappeared. When he reappeared, there were 5 to 6 mountain rats in his hand. In his other hand there were 7 to 8 snakes. They were wriggling lazily. It was obvious that they were hibernating. But June Moxie dug them out. June Moxie looked at Go Buhuan indifferently and smiled. "Go Buhuan, it's not too late to beg for mercy now. If not, this young master will treat you to a proper meal. I'm afraid it'll be too late for regrets." "Humph." Go Buhuan gritted his teeth and turned his head away. "Hero. I hope you can be a hero until the end. I have high hopes for you. Don't let me down." June Moxie threw the snakes and rats on the ground. Under the control of his mystical energy, the snakes and rats didn't dare to move. They stayed there obediently. Then, June Moxie tied up the legs of Go Buhuan's trousers. He casually pulled at his waist. 5 to 6 rats had already crawled into Go Buhuan's trousers. They were squeaking everywhere. Go Buhuan let out a blood-curdling scream. He could feel the rat crawling around his body, sticking close to his skin. His hair stood on end. His eyes finally revealed a look of fear. Suddenly, he let out a blood-curdling scream. His entire body started to tremble. It turned out that the rat had already discovered the flesh on his knee, and had actually climbed up and started to gnaw on it. A man-eater was actually eaten by rats today. Chapter 595. Go Buhuan was bitten by the rat. He was scared out of his wits by the pain. Although he was cruel and loved to eat human flesh, he could not accept the fact that he was eaten alive. As she listened to June Moxie's words, she felt a rat squirming between her waist and crotch. This was a very bad sign. Her complexion changed. But at this moment, she was in so much pain that she didn't even have the strength to beg for mercy. "We are both men. I will definitely not sit by and watch. I will immediately release the snakes to kill the rats and save your little snake. Go Buhuan, you should be grateful to them for saving you. These snakes were hibernating before this. You must be willing to provide a warm place for them, right? I heard that snakes love to burrow. Not only is your place warm, there are holes for them to burrow into. You can also eat and drink. It's a great place. It will be good if you are good. Jun Moxie pretended to pull open Go Buhuan's pants. He raised the snakes in front of Go Buhuan. The snakes hissed and flicked their red tongues. Their triangular heads swayed back and forth. Go Buhuan's entire body was trembling, and he finally broke down completely. Suddenly, with a puff sound, a foul stench filled the air, and his feces and urine flowed out from his front and back at the same time. Suddenly, he screamed and cried, and shook his head desperately. No, 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 no. The way he looked at Jun Moxie was as if he was looking at a demon, an executioner who had killed since ancient times, and was already filled with fear. Fear from the bottom of his heart. What? Speak clearly. Jun Moxie tilted his ear. Don't be like this. Don't, please. Kill me. Go Buhuan clamped his legs together tightly. He kept screaming. He was extremely terrified. I am not satisfied with your current attitude. Jun Moxie frowned. I said earlier that I will only consider letting you off if you kneel down and kowtow to me. You haven't even kowtowed yet. You should learn to be sincere. Go Buhuan screamed in pain. His facial muscles were contorted. Suddenly, he stooped down crazily and kowtowed. His tears flowed freely. I beg you, I'll kowtow to you. You're a magnanimous person, please kill me. Kill me, ah. The voice was too low, I didn't hear it. You damn thing. Jun Moxie frowned, his face filled with dissatisfaction. He smiled faintly and said, You don't even have the energy to beg for mercy? I'm a bird, please. Please kill me. Go Buhuan continuously kowtowed and screamed in agony. He shouted with all his might. He could clearly feel that there were a few mice crawling towards his crotch area. They were already very close. This feeling of being buried alive in the mouths of mice was enough to drive Go Buhuan crazy. Not to mention the fact that he could become an incomplete man at any time. Remember, if there was an afterlife. Don't try to act tough in front of me, I hate it. Since you don't like this main course so much, let's end this feast early. Jun Moxie smiled warmly and stabbed the mice to death through his pants. Then, he stabbed the blood of yellow flame into Go Buhuan's chest. Go Buhuan's body trembled, and a relieved expression appeared on his face. He stared fixedly at Jun Moxie. There was no hatred or gratitude, just a simple stare, as if he wanted to remember this face for the rest of his life. He didn't know if he wanted to remember not to provoke him in the future, or if he wanted to take revenge in his next life. Jun Moxie pulled out his sword. The blade was as cool as water. Looking at the blade, Jun Moxie asked quietly, Is it cruel? The godly sword did not speak, but light flowed around it. This is the pugilistic world. Jun Moxie looked at Go Buhuan's corpse and said calmly, Actually, you are wrong. In this world, there is no such thing as a tough man. There are many people who are unafraid of death, but there are even more punishments that make people wish they were dead. When facing an enemy, when you can't beat them and can't run away, the best thing to do is to kill yourself first. This is my advice to you in your next life. Also, a man-eater. Dying like this is still too easy for you. Maybe I am too soft-hearted. I originally planned to cut off your 5 limbs, then help you heal your wounds and stop the bleeding, turning you into a complete bird. In the last moments of your life, your food will be your own flesh. Jun Moxie turned around and left. Quite a long time has passed. Shui Yen should have familiarized herself with that sword technique by now, right? He thought silently. On Mei Shuyen's side, a few batches of people had already been replaced, and the situation was getting more and more dangerous. Almost everyone was gradually losing their composure. Seeing their comrades getting injured one by one, while the enemy was still unharmed, who wouldn't be anxious and worried in this kind of situation? Moreover, this continuous battle seemed to have no effect on Mei Shuyen at all. She was just like that, unhurried, attacking from long distances and attacking from short distances. Her long sword was impenetrable. She had to face the tight encirclement of 12 people at all times, but she still attacked and defended, not showing any signs of fatigue. Moreover, once someone on her side showed a slight flaw, she would immediately receive the sharpest and most fatal attack. During this period of time, there were already close to 10 people who were injured. What was more frightening was that the power of her strange sword technique seemed to be getting stronger and stronger. Zi Jinghong frowned, feeling that something was wrong. He watched as Mei Shuiyan repeatedly used this sword technique, the gentleness of spring, the heat of summer, the bleakness of autumn, the coldness of winter, over and over again, but the basic pattern did not change at all. She is actually using us to practice her sword technique. F***ck. Zi Jinghong finally understood, and was so angry that his hair stood on end. His face turned from white to red, then to purple, and then to dark purple. It was indeed worthy of his surname, Zi. He thought that his plan was successful, but he never thought that his opponent would use him as a target. It seemed that if he wanted to kill Mei Shuiyan, he would have to pay a considerable price. Zi Jinghong clenched his teeth and suddenly shouted angrily, "Blood sees people perish together." This sentence was like a thunderclap from the ninth heaven. Even Chu Chihuan, who was watching the battle from afar, could feel the chilling murderous intent in it. At this moment, the experts of the illusory blood sea who were still in the battle responded in unison, and their faces quickly turned into expressions of grief and indignation. At the same time, they did a somersault, and only 3 people were left. These 3 people roared, and their swords were sharp, and they attacked crazily without defending themselves at all. At the same time, their bodies seemed to be inflating, and they slowly expanded. "All the unfinished business is left to you. I will leave first. Brothers, see you in the next life." A roar came from afar, and a supreme master was the first to leap into the air. His long sword turned into a dazzling flash of lightning, which then turned into a round pillar of light. His whole body shone with a cold light, and purple lightning flashed, and he pounced towards Mei Shuiyan with an indomitable will. Everyone could clearly see that in this attack, the Supreme Master's body suddenly expanded as he moved in the air. Self-destruct. This was no longer a simple body and sword fusion, but a fusion of the Supreme Master's life, soul, and all of his strength, using his life to kill himself first, and then kill the enemy. The most standard mutual destruction. The most terrifying mutual destruction. The first 3 people were in charge of restraining Mei Shuiyan, sacrificing their lives to restrain her movements so that she could not move freely. Then, another person would control his sword and stab forward, becoming one with his sword, causing a self-explosion. The 4 of them would then use their own radiance of life to unleash a peerless attack. 4 Supreme Masters, mutual destruction. Mei Shuiyan was very experienced. Naturally, she had also sensed this great potential danger. She did not dare to be negligent. With a loud whistle, her long sword rolled out like waves of snow. The sword chi instantly increased, and its momentum was unparalleled. However, the expert from the illusory blood sea beside her could not care less about the fact that his self-destruction preparations had not been completed. He suddenly pounced forward and fiercely slashed with his long sword. Boom! The long sword was indisputably broken. However, at this moment, he launched the most meticulous palm technique, completely ignoring his own life as he pounced towards the sword chi. Puff, puff, puff. Mei Shuiyan's sword pierced through his body 33 times in an instant, from his chest to his back. However, he was still smiling miserably and sent his body over, due to inertia, invincible blood sea. Glory to the Holy Land! At the same time, the other 2 people also made the same choice, using their own lives to fill up any space that Mei Shuiyan could escape to. Blood and flesh flew everywhere, but they shouted crazily and pounced forward. The brilliant sword light that followed also followed, arriving in a flash. There was no space to dodge. Mei Shuyan was enraged, and suddenly slashed down with the long sword in her hand. The sword light trembled, and with a whung sound, a bright wall of light suddenly appeared in front of her, connecting heaven and earth, blinding the eyes. Tian Fa Heaven Punishing Sword. Two equally brilliant sword lights suddenly collided. Boom, boom, boom. 3 violent explosions rang out, and the bodies of the 3 experts simultaneously surrounded Mei Shuyan, turning into minced meat. The power of the explosion was so strong that it actually lifted up a large piece of the ground in a 200 zhang radius, and it exploded in the air. With a muffled groan, Mei Shuyan's white robe exploded, and blood spurted out from her mouth. She staggered backwards, and her face was deathly pale. This suicidal move had actually caused Mei Shuyan to be seriously injured. Mei Shuyan finally understood. It was obvious that the illusory blood sea had practiced this technique for a long time. Otherwise, they would not be able to cooperate so well. If they had nothing better to do, why would the illusory blood sea practice this suicidal technique? They must have been preparing to deal with her for a long time. So if Hermitage did not make a move, the illusory blood sea would have made a move. Mei Shuyan let out a shrill cry, and her heart was filled with endless pain. At that time, the 3 holy lands and 1 ferocious lands had not shed all pretenses of cordiality, but they were actually preparing to deal with her. These were all her comrades in the war for seizing the heavens. Where was their conscience? Where was the justice? Mei Shuyan now truly believed Jun Moxi's words. No matter what, they were going to deal with the Tian Fa forest, and there would definitely be no accidents. In the eyes of the 3 holy lands, the Tian Fa forest was an even more terrifying opponent than the strange races. Mei Shuyan's shrill cry pierced through the air, and the mountains and valleys responded at the same time. From near to far the sound reverberated out, and then from far to near like rolling thunder. The snow on the surrounding mountain peaks began to fall, and even large pieces of mountain rocks fell. Chapter 596. The killing intent in Mei Shuyan's eyes had reached a crazy level. If that's the case, don't blame me for being unjust. Then let this venerable kill all of you until the heavens and earth turn upside down. I won't show any mercy. Do you really think that the king of Tian Fa doesn't know how to kill? Zi Jinghong's expression didn't change at all. It was as if she didn't see or hear what was happening around her. She slammed her palm down and shouted, "Blood and sea of perish! No turning back! Forward! Kill!" Another 3 silhouettes dashed out from 3 different directions to intercept Mei Shuyan. At the same time, another silhouette roared and soared into the sky from a distance. He swung his sword like a whirlwind and once again turned into a dazzling lightning bolt. If she really went through 2 explosions in a row, even if Mei Shuyan was extremely powerful, she would still be seriously injured. At that time, the rest of the people would swarm in. Zi Jinghong and Xiao Weiqing's eyes shone with a cruel light of revenge. Although the price was a little high, but they could finally kill this master of Tian Fa. At this moment, something strange happened. An unimaginable and inexplicable change suddenly occurred. Suddenly, another unparalleled ray of light appeared in midair and flickered abruptly. It disappeared in a flash. It was like an extremely short flash of lightning, and then silence. Before anyone could even react to what was going on, the Supreme Master, who was accumulating power in the sky, suddenly roared and fell down like a weight. He fell right where he was standing. In the middle of the crowd, on his throat, there was a glaring hole of blood. Someone had actually killed him with a single slash when he was about to explode. The person who killed him had grasped the timing to an unimaginable degree. Because the Supreme Master's power had been accumulating to the extreme and he was on the verge of exploding. But he suddenly fell down. When he landed, he completely lost control and exploded with a bang. As mentioned earlier, How could the self-detonation of a supreme being-level expert be a small matter? Even with Mei Xuyan's astonishing cultivation, she would still be injured, let alone these people who were far inferior to Mei Xuyan. In addition to the unexpected incident, everyone was unprepared and almost unprepared. Who would have thought that the experts from their own clan would actually self-destruct in their own nest? And so, tragedy struck. It was a complete tragedy. This was like launching a missile. The missile had successfully lifted off, but the navigation system had malfunctioned, and the missile had fallen vertically, boom. A series of blood-curdling screams resounded. How could the situation at this moment be described with the word chaotic? Xiao Weiqing and his subordinates from the Supreme Golden City were further away, so they were only hit by the shockwave. However, Zi Jinghong, who was in charge of escorting them, was the first to bear the brunt of the shockwave. She was sent flying by the shockwave on the spot. At the same time, 7 or 8 experts from the illusory ocean of blood were also sent flying into the air. Fortunately, they were able to circulate their Xian Qi to protect themselves in midair, so they did not suffer serious injuries. However, these people's internal organs had already been shaken. Blood flowed from the corner of their mouths. After all, this explosion was much lighter than the explosion of the 3 experts that Mei Xuyan had suffered at the same time. Even the 3 experts who were surrounding Mei Xuyan couldn't help but be dumbfounded at this moment. F***ck. What was going on? Even the blood ocean of blood perished together didn't cause such a change. Mei Xuyan's body spun, and she escaped from the encirclement that the 3 experts had created with their lives like lightning. Who is it? Who the F***ck is it? Come out right now. Zi Jinghong crawled up, and the first thing she did was to curse without caring about her image. F***ck, which immoral thing is it? What kind of ability is it to hide behind someone's back and play dirty tricks like this? An ethereal and gloomy voice laughed in midair, and it seemed to say something softly. It feels so good to be able to trick so many Supreme Masters and those who are above the Supreme Master level. Then, an indistinct white figure streaked across the sky with a whoosh, shooting to the right and disappearing in a flash. It seemed to be hiding behind a big rock. At the same time, Jun Moxie's voice came into Mei Xuyan's ears. Come. Mei Xuyan understood and quickly used her peerless Qin Gong. Taking advantage of the chaos, her white shadow flashed and dashed towards the big rock on the right. Coincidentally, the avalanche that Mei Xuyan had just caused finally came crashing down from the surrounding mountains. Countless variables were added to the already chaotic situation. Go after her. Zi Jinghong and Xiao Weiqing were so angry that their lungs almost exploded. Both of them ran 10 feet in a flash, and they were the first to chase after Mei Xuyan. Their faces were full of expressions as if they wanted to eat someone alive. Although the explosion just now had caused a lot of casualties on their side, the casualties were not too serious. On the other hand, the fact that Venerable Mei was injured was an indisputable fact. If they did not take advantage of this opportunity to get rid of him, once he recovered, they would be completely finished. A trick like blood sea perish together could only be used when the opponent was not prepared. If the opponent was prepared, then it would only be a tactic that would damage their own strength. After all, every time it was used, they would lose at least one Supreme Master level expert. Even if the illusory blood sea was rich and powerful, they could not afford such a loss. F***ck. It can't be. A certain Supreme Master Assassin behind the big rock felt all the hairs on his body stand up. His whole body felt cold. F***ck. Why are they all rushing towards me all of a sudden? There can't be such a coincidence, right? F***ck me. Aren't you guys fighting well? I was just watching in high spirit. How did a disaster suddenly befall me? F***ck. It would have been better if they had made some preparations. Seeing the large number of experts from the opponent's side charging over in a grandiose manner, the king of assassins, Chu Chihuan, felt his soul leave his body. There was no place to hide here. As long as they came up, they would be able to see me. How could I still be alive? F***ck. Although a few of them have died, the remaining ones are enough to kill 8 or 10 of me. Right at this moment, a sinister voice suddenly rang out. Just based on these small fries of yours, and you still want to catch me, Chu Chi-huan? Do you have the ability to do so? Bah! This voice seemed to ring out right beside Chu Chi-huan. Even Chu Chi-huan himself heard it. He almost thought that it was him who had said it. He could not help but feel his soul leave his body, and his hair stood on end. Great Lord, you're playing me to death. Chu Chi-huan groaned in his heart. He almost fainted. This voice was like the clearest guide, and all the experts of the 2 holy lands flew towards that direction like a large flock of crows with a boom. F***ck my mother! Chu Chi-huan soared up without any hesitation. He did not even have the time to see clearly who was framing him. He turned into a blurry white shadow and ran away at full speed. After all, escaping was the most important thing at this moment. There was only one thought in Chu Chi-huan's mind right now. This time, I'm really done for. I've become a scapegoat again. This time, it's even more awesome. I've become the scapegoat of the 2 holy lands. I can't live on like this anymore. Oh God, oh Earth, why is my life so bitter? I'm like a stray dog, and I'm like a fish that has escaped the net. The speed at which Chu Chi-huan escaped was really amazing. His current speed was so fast that even June Moxie could not help but exclaim in his heart. So fast. F***ck your mother. Chu Chi-huan. It's really you, you bastard. You son of a bitch who deserves to die by 1,000 cuts. You black-hearted thing that deserves to be struck by lightning. My supreme golden city, illusory ocean of blood, will fight you to the death. Zi Jinghong and Xiao Weiqing cursed at the same time. They were so sad and angry that they could not take it anymore. Why was it that the 2 families' flawless plans were ruined by this damned killer's hands? Could it be that he was born to go against our 3 holy lands? Looking again, Mei Xueyan, whose Qing Gong was unparalleled in the world, had already disappeared without a trace. No one knew where she went. With Mei Xueyan's speed, as long as she ran away, would they be able to catch up with her? Even if she was injured, they would not be able to catch up. Moreover, this was not the only way to go to the Dongfang family. Who knew which direction she had gone? Split up and chase. That would not be a pursuit, but a suicide mission. Zi Jinghong's eyes turned red. She was so angry. He roared like thunder. Chu Chi-huan, this seat swears to the heavens and earth today, I will kill you. If I don't kill you, I swear not to be a human. Xiao Weiqing was so angry that his hair stood up. The 2 of them did not discuss at all. They brought their subordinates and swept past like a dark cloud. Each of them was so angry that their hearts were bleeding, and they chased after Chu Chi-huan in anger. Chu Chi-huan, I will definitely kill you. At this time, the avalanche came crashing down, and the basin was filled to the brim. Waves of snow flew up hundreds of feet, and rolled up thousands of piles of snow. For a moment, many heroes appeared, and the landscape was like a painting. After a long time, the shaking of the earth finally stopped. Behind a big rock less than 5 feet away from where Chu Chi-huan was hiding, 2 people popped their heads out with lingering fear. They were June Moxie and Mei Xueyan. That was so dangerous. June Moxie stuck out his tongue, and his face was full of lingering fear. His hand was on Mei Xueyan's back, and it was only now that he took it off. A large amount of pure spiritual energy from heaven and earth had temporarily suppressed the healing of Mei Xueyan's injuries. How did you know that person was Chu Chi-huan? Mei Xueyan looked at him in surprise, and she was very curious. When I came here just now, you were still persistently practicing your sword, so I came to take a look. This guy's sword is unique, the Autumn Dew Invincible Sword. It is very easy to recognize, and June Moxie laughed without the slightest hint of modesty. He then said proudly, In this world, the only one who has this kind of concealment skill is him. Apart from me, there is no one else. I believe that even you can't do it. That's true. This person's hiding skills are indeed very shocking. He had hidden himself so close that Zi Jinghong and Xiao Weiqing did not even notice him. This kind of concealment skill, if it was spread out, would be enough to shock the world. I am also ashamed of myself. Mei Shuyan agreed. So, if this person is not the supreme killer Chu Chihuan, who else could it be? Jun Moxie smiled. Chapter 597. Jun Moxie stared at him for a long time before he said, "Don't worry, he won't die. You didn't see how fast he ran. How could a supreme assassin die so easily? Besides, this guy is not a good person. Don't worry about him. Let's leave this place first. I've only suppressed your injuries temporarily. Let's find a quiet place and I'll treat you thoroughly. Be careful next time. The supreme assassin's self-destruction is not something to be trifled with." The two of them continued their journey with ease. The next few days were really easy. They did not encounter even a single wave of attacks. This time, the three Holy Lands had sent out a strong and powerful lineup. There were a total of 90 top powerhouses in the world. Such a terrifying force was enough to shake the heavens and shake the earth in this world. But along the way, they suffered heavy casualties. The illusory ocean of blood had the fewest casualties, but they still lost 6 people. The Great Golden City had lost 17 people. Hermitage's 30 people were completely annihilated. Not even a hair was left out of the 90 people, only 37 were left. And among these people, there were 3 or 4 who were crippled in the Jun family's residence. Another 7 or 8 people were wounded in the battle today. Their injuries varied from light to heavy. Even Xiao Weiqing had a few more scars on his body with their current strength. If they still wanted to kill Mei Shuyan, it would be tantamount to seeking death. Therefore, Zi Jinghong and Xiao Weiqing gave up this mission at the same time. Instead, they turned to another target, the supreme assassin Chu Chihuan. The Great Golden City sent out a kill order. Kill Chu Chihuan. The illusory ocean of blood did not want to be left behind. They also sent out a killer weapon, the Blood Sea Kill Order. They swore not to rest until Chu Chihuan is dead. When the elusive world of immortals heard that the people they sent out were all killed, and that Chu Chi-hun had played a key role in it, they were also furious. Without hesitation, they sent out another elusive world of immortals kill order. The 3 Holy Lands shared a common enemy and a common target, Chu Chihuan. In a short period of time, the supreme assassin Chu Chihuan's name could be said to have shaken the entire Xian continent. In a short period of time, his name was awe-inspiring and awe-inspiring. In just a few days, the name of the supreme killer Chu Chihuan had spread all over the continent. Everyone was exclaiming, "This supreme assassin is too awesome! Too awesome!" With the strength of a single person, he challenged 3 Holy Lands. Many Supreme Being experts and experts above the Supreme Being level had died in his hands. This was something that had never happened in the past 10,000 years. What a ferocious man! He was 2F** King Valiant. As a result, Chu Chihuan's name continued to soar, rising to an unprecedented height. All the assassins in history, no matter how glorious their achievements were, in front of Chu Chihuan, they all paled in comparison. Chu Chihuan's name had surpassed all the ancestors of the world of assassins. From this moment onwards, Chu Chihuan had directly reached the heavens, achieving his greatest wish, to become the #1 assassin in history, to surpass the ancients and dazzle the contemporaries. In the past 10,000 years, who dared to challenge the 3 Holy Lands so directly? Not to mention offending all 3 of them, even offending only one of them would be a rare occurrence. And now, our great student Chu Chihuan had simultaneously stirred up the 3 most terrifying hornets' nests. Not to mention his achievements. Just this kind of courage, this kind of boldness, is absolutely unprecedented in history and will never be matched in the future. To be Chu Chihuan, to shake the world with incomparable might. To look down on the past and present, who could compare? To outshine the world, the supreme assassin. In a short period of time, the people of the world had such a poem, fighting to praise the great achievements of the Supreme Chu. As long as the Xian cultivators of the pugilistic world gathered together, they would discuss. Hey, do you have any news today? Is it about the Supreme Assassin? No, but this guy is really fierce, to actually be able to defeat the 3 Holy Lands at the same time. This kind of courage, this brother admires it to death. If there's no news, it means he's not dead yet. To think that the 3 Holy Lands can't do anything to him. What do you know? Supreme Chu is the #1 assassin in history. Although the 3 Holy Lands are very powerful, but can they compare to their seniors? You have to know that Chu Chihuan has surpassed his master. No water can compare to the great killer Chu. That's true, at Chu Chihuan's level, there is indeed nothing to fear. Awesome, this brother has never heard of such a fierce person in this world. This is 2F** king satisfying, to challenge the 3 Holy Lands alone. Just thinking about it makes this brother tremble with excitement. Isn't that right? Chu Chihuan is really gutsy, really too gutsy, too manly. Yeah, do you guys know why Chu Chihuan wants to kill the people from the 3 Holy Lands? Why? Tell us quickly. Everyone was anxious. You guys are really ignorant. I'm the only one who knows about this secret. Sigh, I've traveled such a long distance, I'm thirsty and hungry. I'm really tired. Nacho sighed and sighed. Waiter, hurry up and serve the good wine and dishes. If you're a moment late, I'll break your neck. Pick the best, the most expensive. With a loud bang, a few people shouted at the same time to treat. Seeing that you guys are so sincere, I'll tell you guys. Nacho narrowed his eyes mysteriously and stretched out 2 fingers. Actually, there are 2 reasons for this matter. The first reason is that Chu Chihuan has a childhood sweetheart. She's too beautiful, but somehow, the people from the illusory blood sea of the 3 Holy Lands found out about it, so they came to take a look, and with one look, they were mesmerized. So that's how it is, so it's a love dispute. Everyone suddenly understood. So they snatched her back, but after they snatched her back, there was only one person. How were they going to split it? So they fought. This fight was not a big deal. The Holy Landlord came out, and after stopping the fight, he inadvertently saw that woman. I have to say, she's really too beautiful. I have to say, a beauty is really a source of calamity. Nacho shook his head, fascinated, and then? Nacho scratched his head anxiously. And then he took her for himself and indulged in sensual pleasures every night. Nacho laughed obscenely, his voice extremely low. Everyone gathered around the table and listened attentively, their black heads squeezed together like a small plate of cabbage that was surrounded by flies. Everyone's hearts were filled with gossip, and their eyes were filled with curiosity. But somehow, this matter was found out by the other 2 Holy Lands, so the other 2 Holy Lands lords were curious, and they came together to pay a visit. I have to say that woman is really too beautiful. I have to say, a beauty is really a source of calamity. Then, guess what happened? A fight. No, they didn't fight, but I don't know what exactly happened in any case. The 3 Holy Lands lords were very happy, and everything was very peaceful. Oh! There was a deep and meaningful voice of realization. Then, Chu Chihuan found out about this matter. Everyone, what if this happened to you? What would you do? Is there a need to ask? Take out your swords and go. Damn it, a man can do anything but be a tortoise. If you're a man, you have to go. Clapping his hands, he said excitedly. Isn't that so, things have come to this point today. Chu Chihuan was actually forced to do it, but there's no doubt that the great supreme Chu Chihuan is a real man. Yes, a real man. Oh right, what's the other reason? The other reason is already obvious. At the level of Chu Chihuan, he has already reached an unprecedented level. It's lonely at the top. Even if I explain this to you guys, you won't understand. Let's drink, everyone smacked their lips, a look of satisfaction on their faces. So there's more to it than meets the eye, someone raised a question. Chu Chihuan's childhood sweetheart, no matter how you look at it, she should be more than 100 years old, right? An old lady with wrinkled skin and white hair can still be so charming? TSK, you're really ignorant and inexperienced. Disdainfully, don't you know what it means to be a middle-aged woman, but still attractive? Do you know? What does it mean to retain one's youth? Do you know? What does it mean to live forever? Do you know? What does it mean to use yang to nourish yin? Do you understand? What does it mean? Do you understand now? Nodding his head like a chicken pecking on rice, he said, "Thank you for your guidance. Asking a gentleman's words is better than reading for 10 years. My horizons have been broadened today. The stone in my heart has been swept away." This was a version, but it was definitely not the only version. There were at least a few hundred different versions circulating in the continent, and each of them was well-founded, and well-founded. They were all vivid and lifelike. Chu Chihuan had truly become the most famous person in history. In the entire world, there was no one who did not know of him, That poem had even become a masterpiece for all eternity. Of course, all of these, Jun Moxie and Jun Dashao temporarily did not know. This source of everything, the creator of all the blame for Chu Chihuan, was currently leisurely traveling in the sea of forests and snowy plains with a beauty, completely unaware that the reputation of the great Supreme Chu in the outside world had already reached such an exaggerated level. If he knew, I believe that Jun Dashao would definitely feel very comforted in my heart. Perhaps even jealous. How did the title of the world's #1 assassin disappear out of thin air? After all, this guy's thinking could not be understood with common sense. 200 miles away from the Dongfang family. This place could be said to be the territory of the Dongfang family. After exiting a dense forest, Jun Moxie stood at the top of a mountain, looking at the vast mountains in front of him. He could not help but sigh. It was really not easy for my old man to find his wife in such a hidden place. How many days has it been since I left? Other than birds and beasts, I actually did not see a single human footprint. What do you mean by that? Mei Shuiyan, who was originally smiling sweetly and following him, suddenly stopped in her tracks, her face darkened, her eyes looking at him with a very unfriendly gaze. F***ck. Only then did Jun Moxie remember that he had unknowingly offended a beauty again. This was a Xian beast. F***ck. I must install a door on my mouth. I actually mean, other than the two of us, there is actually no one else. Jun Moxie wiped away his sweat and quickly used the great skill of changing the topic. Shuiyan, I really admire you too much, so these few days, I wrote a poem for you without rest. Do you want to hear it? This is my confession of my true feelings. Let me hear it. Mei Shuiyan instantly became interested. She knew that although this guy was known for being ignorant, he could often come up with a few absolutely beautiful poems that could be passed down through the ages. Now that she saw that he had specially written a poem for her, of course her curiosity was aroused. Chapter 598. The name of this poem is If. Jun Mo cleared his throat, and a mysterious smile flashed across the corner of his mouth. He steadied his emotions and sank his chi into his dantian. Then, he used a cadence of emotions to recite the poem. If I were the peasant, then you would be the noon. If I were the bow, then you would be the eagle. If I were the Qingming, then you would be the He Tuesday. If I were the immortal sword, then you would be the legend of chivalry. If there are so many if, my heart is in it. His voice was clear and deep, and it traveled through the dense forest. Thus the entire valley echoed, peasant, noon, after he finished reciting. June Moxie looked at Mei Shiyan sincerely, and said affectionately, Shuiyan, this is my feelings. It expresses my most sincere feelings for you, and also my desire for you. Love is higher than the mountain, and love is deeper than the sea. You just give in to me. Mei Shiyan frowned and softly recited the poem. The more she recited, the more confused she became. Finally, she asked humbly, What does this poem mean? You only need to know that this poem is my wish for you. Only the sun in the sky can express my feelings. June Moxie said solemnly. A trace of inexplicable emotion flashed across Mei Shiyan's face, but she still pondered in her heart. The feelings in this poem were quite deep, but the literary standard was too ordinary. She was like this: if there was something she didn't understand, she would keep thinking about it. But this time, she didn't understand at all, and softly murmured. After a long time, when she was about to ask June Moxie again, a voice suddenly sounded from afar. Who's making a racket here? Following this voice, a person flew over like a meteor from afar and landed in front of the two. The moment he saw June Moxie, he was immediately overjoyed. Moxie, you brat, you're finally here. I've been counting the days and waiting for you these past few days. I've been waiting for you to show up. The person who came was Dongfang Wendao, June Moxie's third uncle. Dongfang Wendao saw Mei Shiyan and couldn't help but stare at her and said, This is... He praised in his heart, My nephew is really capable. He actually found another one, and she's so beautiful, your niece-in-law, my wife. June Moxie hurriedly introduced. Dongfang Wendao panicked and touched his body left and right. After a long time, Dongfang Wendao looked embarrassed. Why didn't you say so earlier? I'm your uncle, I didn't bring any greeting gifts. Mei Shiyan really suffered a lot of embarrassment when she followed June Moxie. Along the way, as long as they knew each other, June Moxie would introduce them. This is my wife, my wife, my wife, my wife, my wife. But when he introduced them like this, Mei Shiyan couldn't say anything, because these people were all worthy of June Moxie's respect and intimacy. But they were all her juniors. It was really uncomfortable. As time passed, Mei Shiyan didn't care about this. She was already used to it. She had also trained to be thick-skinned. If she didn't have thick skin with this guy, she would really die of embarrassment. What greeting gifts do I need? June Moxie declined enthusiastically. When you go back, you can just give me a double. Shuiyan definitely won't mind. You really don't regard yourself as an outsider. Don't you know that your third uncle doesn't have much money? Dongfang Wendao glanced at his nephew resentfully. Let's go, your grandma is waiting for you, and her eyes are already going to become blurry. June Moxie cursed in his heart. What? Blurry eyes? Even old people will get blurry eyes when they are old, okay? How can you say that she's waiting for me? What are you talking about? When Dongfang Wendao said the seventh sentence, almost there, just a turn and we'll be there, they finally saw the gates of the Dongfang family. This caused June Moxie to have some doubts about his uncle's concept of distance. From 300 li away, he had already said, almost there, just a turn and we'll be there. But up till now, he had already made over 100 turns. The Dongfang family that appeared in front of June Moxie surprised June Moxie. There was a valley in front of him. In the valley, the surroundings were actually fields. Only in the middle, there was a big house with red walls and green tiles. But it didn't have any luxury of an aristocratic family. Instead, it looked like a peaceful and ordinary village. However, this simple and unadorned village had a unified wall. Then, the inside was divided into houses. In the middle was a wide continent that was paved with fine stones. Over the years, the stone road had already turned dark brown, and even lost the slightest bit of edge. 9 people were waiting in front of the door. There was a red sandalwood chair in the middle, and a thin old lady was sitting on it. She had snow-white hair, and even her eyebrows were snow-white. Although she was old, her spirit was exceptionally good, and she looked kind. Only when her eyes flashed, one could still see the sharpness that she used to dominate the martial world. Her face was full of smiles, and when she saw June Moxie coming, she couldn't help but tear up. "This is your grandmother," Dongfang Wendao said in a low voice. That year, she used a technique to maintain her youth. She looked like she was in her 30s or 40s, even though she was in her 70s or 80s. But when your mother was brought back, she looked so miserable, so her hair turned white overnight, and she became old and haggard day by day, until she looked like this now. Sighed Dongfang Wendao's words were heavy, and Jun Mosie's heart ached when he heard them. He remembered his grandfather Jun Zhantian's evaluation of Dongfang the old lady before he left. "Your grandmother is not a simple person. She is like an old demon. She is in her 70s or 80s, but she looks like she is in her 30s. She looks like your mother, more like a sister than a mother and daughter. She is peerless in her generation, graceful and elegant, and has the demeanor of a great family." Jun Wui also warned him solemnly, "Emosie, you must be more respectful when you meet your grandmother. Don't feel uncomfortable just because she looks young." Madame Dongfang can be said to be the wisest woman your third uncle has ever known. But now that he remembered his grandfather and third uncle's warning, Jun Moxie only felt sad, heart felt sad. Jun Zhantian and Jun Wui's impression was still the one from 10 years ago. Madame Dongfang, his own grandmother, had actually become like this in a short period of time after she brought her daughter home. Wrinkled skin, white hair, and doddering old age. What kind of mental torture did she have to go through to become like this? Although his daughter was married and had children, in the heart of the old lady, she was still the little girl with pigtails. Seeing that her daughter was so sad, living a life worse than death, and couldn't get up, the motherly heart of Dongfang the old lady had also collapsed. Why would a mother care about her image when her daughter was like this? Under the heavy worry, her hair turned white overnight. In the past 10 years, there were thousands of trivial things to take care of, and there was a strong enemy oppressing the Suo family. How could she not grow old? Beside her, second Uncle Dongfang Wenjian and eldest Uncle Dongfang Wenqing were standing on both sides. A few young boys and girls behind them were looking at them curiously. There were also 3 dignified middle-aged beautiful women, looking at Jun Moxie and Mei Shuyan quietly. The old woman didn't speak, and neither did they. "Is it Wen Xian's son? Emosie? Jun Moxie?" Old Madame Dongfang stood up shakily and looked at the young face in front of her. In a trance, she seemed to see the shadow of her daughter when she was young. In a trance, she seemed to see her daughter walking over delicately. Suddenly, she thought of her daughter who was still unconscious and her heart was tightly shut. Suddenly, her eyes turned red. She forced herself to take 2 steps forward, her white hair fluttering in the wind. Her voice trembled a little. Come closer, come quickly, let Grandma have a good look, my grandson. Why did you come so late?" An indescribable bitterness rose in Jun Moxie's heart. He forced a smile and moved forward slowly. He knelt down on one knee and raised his head to look at the strong old woman who had sacrificed so much for her children. His heart was filled with respect, affection, and an indescribable bitterness. That year, Jun Wu Hui died in an accident. Dongfang Wenxian heard the bad news and fell ill. The old lady of Dongfang came out of her seclusion and slaughtered the world. The assassins of the Dongfang family were everywhere, and the whole continent was shaken. They washed the Xian Empire with blood. That year, Jun Mo Yu and Jun Mo Cho were mysteriously murdered. The Dongfang family took revenge. Blood flowed for thousands of miles. Even the Tianxiang Imperial Palace was filled with human heads. All of these were the masterpieces of the old lady. For her children, she did not hesitate to use the weak power of the Dongfang family to fight against the whole world. What kind of boldness was that? Even if she had to slaughter the whole world, she had to take revenge. What kind of deep hatred was this? All of this was for her daughter, for that true love. Similarly, it was precisely because of this that the Dongfang family suffered from the combined forces of the three supreme martial artists. At the end of their rope, this peerless beauty of a generation had unwillingly sworn a vow. Carrying with her endless regrets and a heart full of pain, she faded out of the martial world. Her revenge was not avenged, her blood was not paid. She had no choice but to return. From then on, there was no way for her to return. Facing her daughter's endless pain day and night, facing the helplessness in her heart, facing the pain that was equivalent to a lifetime of pain, how could this mother who loved her daughter endure it? The sword peak collapsed and the Xian beasts came out of Tian Fa. How could the old man feel good about spending the past 10 years in such a remote place where no one would ever tread? How could there be a chance to fulfill such harsh conditions? If there was no day, wouldn't the Dongfang family's descendants die of old age in the mountains? For the sake of a daughter, she had to implicate the whole family. Even if she had no regrets, it would be difficult for her to face the other family members. What a huge pressure this was! It was constantly pressing on the old lady's heart. She was in a dilemma. If she didn't agree to such conditions, the Dongfang family would have been destroyed on the spot. There would have been no chance of survival. She had no choice but to agree, but in exchange, she could only struggle at death's door. Jun Mo suddenly felt that he understood this grandmother of his very well. The pressure on this seemingly frail old woman was too great, too heavy. There is a very important matter that I need the help of my brothers and sisters. Rebirth sweeps the wind and clouds. Book number 176-4269. The author, Sword Dance Sweeps the Wind and Clouds, is a very good brother of Feng Ling. Tonight is the first time this book is going to be on the list. It is very crucial. Please help him, everyone, and help him dance the wind and clouds. Chapter 599. So much like one Xin when she was young, so much like. The old lady of Dongfang stroked Jun Moxie's face with her wrinkled hands. Her eyes gradually became blurry, and 2 drops of tears finally fell down. She couldn't see her grandson's face anymore, but she still couldn't let go of him. Suddenly, she pulled Jun Moxie into her arms. Her body was trembling, and her tears were dripping onto her grandson's collar and neck. She murmured, "My dear grandson, you haven't seen your mother for so many years. It must have been hard on you." Jun Moxie wanted to say something to comfort the old lady in front of him, but somehow, his throat was choked and he couldn't speak at all. This kind of strong affection blew into Jun Moxie's heart like the spring breeze and drizzle, making him feel that he was not alone in this world. There were so many people who cared about him, loved him, and protected him. Family, kinship. The old lady's eyes were filled with tears, and her white hair was desolate. At this moment, she was just an old lady who had seen her grandson who had wandered away from home. She didn't have the slightest bit of spirit that she used to have when she was waving her sword and slaughtering the world. "My dear grandson, other children at your age are still growing up under the protection of their parents, but my poor grandson lost his father at the age of 7, and his mother left when he was 8. Although he is still alive, it's like both his parents have passed away. Whenever I think about it, my heart feels like it's being cut by a knife, mother. It's a great thing that Emosia is back now. You should relax your heart and focus on your health." Dongfang Wenqing came forward to persuade. Mind your own business. My grandson is here. So, I naturally want to take a good look at him. He grew up with that old bastard Jun Zhantian. How can he not suffer? That old bastard is hot-tempered, and always scolds him. How can he teach my son well? My son must have suffered a lot over the years. If it wasn't for our Dongfang family's bloodline, I'm afraid that he would have been driven astray by that stubborn old bastard. It could be seen that the old lady held a deep grudge against Grandpa Jun. She kept calling him old thing and old thing. In the end, she finally felt a little relieved. Fortunately, he has the blood of my Dongfang family. Otherwise, this child would have fallen into depravity long ago. A few years ago, when she heard about Mosie's debauchee deeds, the old lady was so angry that she almost rushed out of the mountain to find Jun Zhan Tian to settle the score. In the old man's heart, the child was naturally good. Even if the child became bad, it was because Jun Zhan Tian did not fulfill his responsibility to teach the child. That old man was a blockhead. How could he know how to teach the child? Jun Moxie didn't know whether to laugh or cry when he heard this. After a long time, the old lady finally calmed herself down. She took a handkerchief from a noblewoman behind her and wiped her eyes. Then, she looked at Mei Shiyan and asked Jun Moxie with a smile on her old face, "Moxie, this girl is my granddaughter-in-law? She looks so pretty. Come me girl, turn around and let grandma have a look." Jun Moxie nodded hurriedly like a chicken pecking at rice. "Grandma has a discerning eye. This is my granddaughter-in-law. Are you satisfied with her? If not, I'll beat her up tonight." Jun Moxie's words made Mei Shiyan roll her eyes. Mei Shiyan snorted in her heart. "But we're in front of others. I'll give you some face and not argue with you. Beat me up? You? It's hard to say who's going to beat who up. Just you wait, I won't take care of you tonight. Do you think my tofu is that delicious?" "Haha, you little brat, how can you say that? A daughter-in-law needs to be doted on. How can you say that you want to beat her up? Besides, can you really bear to beat such a fairy-like person?" The old lady smiled and looked Mei Shiyan up and down carefully. She nodded repeatedly and narrowed her eyes. Satisfied, she said, "Moxie, you have a good eye. This girl is pretty, and she has big breasts and a big butt. She'll definitely give birth to a son. You can't just lay your hands on her." Mei Shiyan's face instantly turned red. She almost stamped her feet in embarrassment. "I'm the #1 beast king of Tian Fa. Even if you're Jun Moxie's grandma, why actually, say that to me." Jun Moxie beamed with delight. "Grandma is right. She'll definitely give birth to a son. I have confidence in this. There's definitely no problem." At the same time, he was very curious. Is the Dongfang family really so out of touch? They actually don't know that Shui Yan is the Venerable Mei? If you have a child, you have to send him to me. Grandma will take care of him and educate him well. Your grandfather is careless. How would he know how to take care of a child? I don't want to lead a child astray. Let's talk about you. If it wasn't for your mother's bloodline, it would be hard to tell you. If that old man gets angry, Grandma will scold him." Thinking of Jun Moxie's reputation as a profligate son, the old lady obviously still held a grudge. "What? Send him here? Not to mention Grandpa, even I won't be able to get through this." Jun Moxie's face twitched. He looked at the deep mountains and old forests. This place is even more remote than the Tian Fa forest. The mountains are not clear, and the water is not beautiful. This is your first aunt, this is your second aunt, this is your third aunt. Quickly come and greet them." The old lady was full of smiles. She took out a small white jade box from her bosom. It was actually made from a whole piece of warm jade. Just this small box alone was worth a lot. Opening the small box, there was a small phoenix standing proudly inside. The phoenix's body was actually colorful, and its eyeballs and feathers were even more lifelike. It was as if it had come to life, and could spread its wings and fly at any time. This radiant rainbow phoenix is made from a piece of multicolored jade. It naturally forms 7 colors, and they are all 7 pure colors, without any impurities. Coincidentally, it also formed the image of a phoenix. That year, a famous craftsman, Lu Qiaoshou, spent 3 years to take it out completely. It is a rare treasure. When it first appeared, it caused a huge uproar in the world. It became the dream of all the women in the world. That year, it even caused countless bloodshed and disputes. Later on, it fell into my hands, and I could not bear to take it out. Now that I have seen it today, I can give it to my good granddaughter-in-law as a greeting gift. The old lady smiled. She personally inserted the radiant rainbow phoenix into Mei Shiyan's cloud-like hair. She looked at it from left to right, and said with satisfaction, "Only a fairy like my granddaughter-in-law can bring out the best in this radiant rainbow phoenix." After putting on the jade hairpin, Mei Shiyan's hair, which was covered in dark clouds, changed colors. It made her already beautiful face look even more beautiful and alluring than before. Mei Shiyan thanked her with a red face. The moment she saw this radiant rainbow phoenix, she fell in love with it at first sight. Even though Mei Shiyan was a Tian Fa Beast King, she was still a woman after all. She could not avoid the customs. Next, it was the turn of the 3 ants to present their greeting gifts. In an instant, Mei Shiyan carried a few boxes in her hands. She was a little shy and embarrassed, but she was also very happy. Should I call him cousin, Grandma? A mischievous little boy popped out. He was about 10 years old and looked very cute. He had a pair of black eyes that rolled around. "Little Naughty, hurry up and greet your cousin." The old mistress smiled amiably and pinched Little Naughty's tender little face. She said to June Moxie, "This is your second uncle's youngest baby, Little Naughty." "Cousin." The little boy took a step forward and puffed out his chest. "My name is Dong Fong Little Huai, not Dong Fong Little Naughty." Actually, I don't really like the name Little Huai, but the day my mother gave birth to me, I heard that she dreamt of a small locust tree. Little Huai is already not nice to hear, but everyone still calls me Little Naughty. Actually, I'm not bad at all, really. Dong Fong Little Naughty. Little Naughty cousin, how are you? June Moxie rubbed his nose. Looking at this little boy's mischievous appearance, how could he not know what he was planning? As expected, cousin. Look at how many gifts you've received today. I'm younger than you. This is the first time we've met. Are you going to give me a gift too? Dong Fong smiled mischievously and tilted his head to ask for a bribe. That's easy. Didn't you just say that you're not satisfied with this name? Cousin, how about you give me a nice name? It's absolutely awe-inspiring, so that people will be shocked when they hear it and they will never forget it. It's the kind of name that has the bearing of an unparalleled master. June Moxie rolled his eyes. Ah? What name? I'm thinking of changing it, but my parents won't let me. It would be best if cousin could give me an awe-inspiring name. The little boy suddenly forgot about asking for a gift and became excited. Well, Dong Fong Little Huai. It's really not awe-inspiring, and the locust tree is the ghost of the tree, so it's a little inauspicious. How about this? June Moxie smiled mischievously and said, How about you change your name to Booby? Dong Fong Booby. Dong Fong family will never be defeated. How about it? Isn't it bold enough? Dong Fong Booby. That's great. This name is too awesome. In an instant, the little boy's face lit up with excitement. He turned over and somersaulted twice, and announced loudly, From now on, my name is Dong Fong Booby. That's right. But you have to work hard, you have to live up to the awe-inspiring name of Booby. Also, I've thought of a slogan for you. June Moxie said mysteriously. What slogan? Dong Fong Little Huai's eyes were filled with enthusiasm. In the future, when you roam the martial world, and someone asks for your name, you have to say this. June Moxie puffed out his chest, raised his head, and put one foot in front and one foot behind. He put on the air of a peerless master who looked down on the world, and with a steady and dignified voice, he shouted leisurely, Sunrise, Dong Fong, only I. Booby, sunrise, Dong Fong, only I am Booby. Dong Fong Little Huai. No, Dong Fong Booby cried out loudly, and looked at June Moxie with eyes full of admiration. Sunrise, Dong Fong, only I am Booby. It's really too awe-inspiring, too classy. Wahahaha. Wow. Cousin. You're really too talented. I announce that from now on you're my Dong Fong little. No. You're my Dong Fong Booby's idol. After settling the matter of Dong Fong Booby, June Moxie smiled with a sense of accomplishment. He looked at the people around him, and they all had a look of approval on their faces. They were very satisfied that June Moxie had obtained the name Booby Dongfang. The Dongfang family must have this kind of domineering aura. Sunrise, Dongfang, only I am Booby. To the Dongfang family, the fact that their grandson had received this name was an unexpected gift. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.